Chapter 2407. That's right. The way he looked at us a moment ago was simply disdainful. He didn't put us in his eyes at all. He was extremely arrogant. However, I'm afraid that the Holy Ghost family won't let the matter rest since Brother Yi has done this. I've heard that they've come here to denounce Yi Shiwen for his crimes. But they've added fuel to the fire now. I'm afraid that it won't end well in the end. Many people couldn't help but become somewhat worried when they saw this scene. The Holy Ghost family wasn't an ordinary family. So, how could they possibly let the matter rest? This Brother Yi is too ruthless. It's no wonder that such a person could become a peerless genius in such a short time. We can't achieve such a feat. No wonder I heard that he was a lawless person in the past. Those who offended him didn't have a good ending. Could it be that the people from the Holy Spirit family thought that he was an ordinary person who could be easily scared away? No wonder I heard that he was a lawless person in the past. Why are you still standing there in a daze? Hurry up and save him. Ling Xiong's complexion turned ugly as she said. Elder Gong's words a moment ago had been like a big slap to her face. She had said that she would teach Yi Shiwen a lesson. However, Yi Shiwen had used his actions to ruthlessly slap her in the face. In fact, her face had turned red. However, it was impossible for her to abandon her followers. Under her command, the experts behind her immediately took action. They helped Feng Ruizong up and gave him a medicinal pill. Only then did the injuries on his body stop. His head, which was on the verge of splitting open, immediately recovered. However, he didn't dare to challenge Yi Shiwen at this time. So, how could he dare to look for trouble with Yi Shiwen? He had been sent flying by a slap, and his head had almost been smashed open. He was very clear that there was a huge disparity between his strength and Yi Shiwen's. What a ruthless boy. He had used a deadly attack. Feng Ruizong's head had almost been split open. He has recovered now. However, there will certainly be some sequelae left behind. I don't know how long it will take to clean them up. An old man behind Ling Xiong looked at Feng Ruizong's injuries and couldn't help but angrily say. His aura surged out uncontrollably, like a scorching flame or a rosy mist gushing out from his body. It's just an exchange of pointers, that's all. Why are you so vicious? Are you planning to leave an indelible injury on his body? The old man looked at Yi Shiwen in anger and roared. I have already shown mercy. Otherwise, I would have slapped this trash to death. Yi Shiwen indifferently said. This made the experts of the Holy Ghost family even more ashamed and furious, especially the experts of the younger generation. At this moment, they were ashamed and furious and didn't know what to say. Among them, Feng Ruizong's ability was considered to be at the top. He had already reached the peak of immortal level. If he was trash, what were they? Originally, they thought that the rumors in the outside world were just rumors after all. After seeing him in person, they were even more disappointed. Sure enough, he was not as good as his reputation. He was only at the late stage of immortal level, but he was actually praised to have such a battle record. Now it seemed so ridiculous. Originally, they only suspected that Sheng Wu Fei's death was related to Yi Shiwen. However, they didn't believe that it was related to an immortal level. If that was the case, it would make Sheng Wu Fei seem like a good-for-nothing. However, it didn't seem to be the case now. This human in the late stage of immortal level might really have the ability to defy the natural order. Leniency? Is this what you call leniency? The old man looked at Yi Shiwen angrily. He and Feng Ruizong had an extremely good relationship. One looked like an old man, while the other was a young man. In fact, the gap between them wasn't that big. At most, they had only known each other for hundreds of thousands of years. Even Feng Ruizong had been recommended by him to Ling Xiong as a follower. Show mercy? What if you weren't so merciless? Just kill him, Yi Shiwen said coldly. His face was indifferent, without the slightest change in his expression. Ah, good. Just kill him. If I kill you, don't shout. The old man was so angry that he laughed and said. Then, he walked towards Yi Shiwen step by step. Miss Ling, although our Hidden Valley respects the Holy Soul family, it doesn't mean that the people of the Holy Soul family can be so presumptuous in our Hidden Valley. Elder Gong said coldly. The Holy Spirit family had challenged his bottom line time and time again. This had already made him extremely unhappy. Elder Gong, The Holy Soul family doesn't want to cause trouble. However, if you don't give us an explanation, I'm afraid that we won't let this matter go so easily. Originally, I didn't believe that someone would be so bold as to kill the disciples of the Holy Soul family. However, Yishuan dared to be so ruthless in front of me. It seems that there's nothing that he wouldn't dare to do. So, could it be that the previous rumor is true? Did Saint Wufa really die in the hands of your sect's disciple, Yishuan? Ling Qiong suddenly stood up. She didn't give in and said in an unyielding tone. Yishuan's heart was as clear as a mirror. Sure enough, they had come to denounce him. He couldn't help but sneer and said, "What? The people of the Holy Soul family can't die. Countless gods fall in the god burial star ocean every year. But the people of the Holy Soul family are very precious and can't die. So, you're saying that you killed Saint Wufa?" Ling Qiong coldly glanced at Yishuan and said. Her tone was exceptionally cold. "That's right, I killed him. He dared to compete with me for the 10,000 law roulette. He deserved to die." Yishuan said indifferently. "How dare you? You're extremely arrogant. You must make the Hidden Valley hand over the 10,000 law roulette. Hand over this arrogant kid. We must make him die without a burial place. We must kill his entire clan to dispel the hatred in our hearts." When the experts of the Holy Soul family saw that Yishuan had agreed so easily, they couldn't help but clamor one after another. It seemed as if they had been provoked by something. Incomparably powerful rays of light burst out from their bodies. It seemed as if they would start a fight if there was any disagreement. "Impudent!" Elder Gong immediately shouted. "Is this a place where you can be impudent? Yishuan was in the wrong for killing Saint Wufa. I will make him apologize to you." Elder Gong turned to Yishuan and said, "Hurry up and apologize. Have a better attitude and be more sincere." When Yishuan heard this, he found it funny. On the other hand, the experts of the Holy Soul family were seething with anger. What did he mean by apologize and have a better attitude? They had lost an undead realm expert. Moreover, he was the target of their nurturing. But now he wanted to push everything away with just an apology? This was simply wishful thinking. This old man was clearly determined to report Yishuan to the Hidden Valley. "Elder Gong, I respect you as a senior expert. However, you can't side with Yishuan like this. He is arrogant and doesn't put our Holy Soul family in his eyes. If we let him go, where would our Holy Soul family's face be?" That old man said while restraining his anger. "What does the Holy Soul family's face have to do with me?" Elder Gong said coldly. He didn't even bother to put on a show. "You!" That old man went crazy with anger. Don't forget that according to the agreement between the major forces, in the god burial star ocean, he will die in vain. Who asked him to overestimate himself and try to snatch the 10,000 method roulette? At this time, Yishuan interrupted and said, "He wants to obtain such a precious treasure without strength. If this isn't overestimating himself, then what is?" Good, overestimating himself. I think you are also overestimating yourself. You are just an ant, yet you dare to provoke our Holy Soul family. Wait until I take you down. That old man was already seething with anger. He didn't have time to think. His big hand turned into a huge fierce claw and grabbed towards Yishuan. The claw was like a bird of prey in the sky. Even a god's bones would be pierced through if the claw landed on him. "How dare you?" Elder Gong was furious. This Holy Soul family was too impudent. It was simply hateful. Just as he was about to attack, he heard Yishuan say leisurely, "Elder, you don't need to worry. As the saying goes, there is no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. I alone am more than enough to deal with this kind of useless chicken and pottery dog." The old man was overjoyed when he saw this. He was most afraid that Elder Gong would bully the weak and take advantage of his seniority to attack him. Now that Yishuan had said so, it was simply a great thing for him. "You are seeking your own death. This time, no one can save you." The old man immediately laughed and snorted coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, his big hand had already grabbed Yishuan's head. This was the aura of an eternal stage. This kind of domineering aura was something that even an eternal stage expert couldn't possess. It's hard to say who is seeking his own death. Since you dare to attack me in front of so many people, don't blame me for being impolite. The Holy Soul family's reputation is only worth this much money. I've already given you face. Since you are all shameless, then don't blame others for seeking your own death. At this moment, Yi Shiwen said coldly. His body erupted with a shocking aura. It was unknown how many times more tyrannical it was compared to when he had dealt with Feng Ruizong. His entire body was surrounded by laws like a golden whirlpool, forming a monstrous storm. Every pore on his body opened and spewed out a shocking sword aura. Then, it erupted fiercely and the sword aura soared up to the sky. It directly slashed at the big hand that was grabbing him. Bang! The big hand was slashed on the spot. The whole big hand exploded on the spot. The sword's intention extended into the void and directly rushed to the old man's body. Ah! That old man screamed and covered his shoulder. Blood flowed out continuously. It turned out that his entire arm had been destroyed by Yi Shiwen's sword aura in the air. Chapter 2408. Blood spurted out like a fountain, and it simply couldn't be stopped. Yi Shiwen's sword chi was still lingering on the wound, so he couldn't even repair the wound, let alone regrow his arm. For an Eternal Realm Master, this was simply an inconceivable thing. The old man looked at Yi Shiwen in horror. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen's sword ki to be so sharp. Almost in an instant, Yi Shiwen's sword ki had broken his offensive. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's sword ki could even counterattack his body. This kind of attack was simply unheard of. It was inconceivable that someone could reach such a level. What kind of attack is this? The sword intention actually penetrated the void and attacked the body. The experts of the Holy Ghost family said in shock. Deities naturally had their own means, and the undead realm deities were even more extraordinary. Although they were standing in front of you, their real bodies might already be behind countless layers of space, layer upon layer. If the undead realm deities were unwilling, it would be a big problem for the immortal realm deities to come into contact with them. Therefore, when they saw Yi Shiwen's sword intention penetrating the void and injuring the old man's body, they were so shocked. This was a terrifying method that surpassed their understanding. Many people's eyes widened. He actually has a method to injure an eternal realm expert. Yi Shiwen didn't care what the others thought. Before anyone could react, he clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. The fist energy also pierced through the vast sky. In a split second, it seemed to be eternal. In an instant, it rushed to the front of the old man. The speed was so fast that even the old man didn't have time to defend himself. Yi Shiwen directly penetrated through the layers of void and hit his face. Boom! A huge explosion sounded. The Eternal Realm expert was hit by Yi Shiwen's fist. His whole body flew into the sky and blood spurted out of his mouth. Swish! A violent sound came. The Eternal Realm expert directly hit the wall of the octagonal palace. Then he slid down and couldn't move. He only felt that all the bones in his body were about to break. He didn't know how many bones in his body were broken by Yi Shiwen's fist. After a long time, the crowd finally reacted, especially the experts from the Holy Ghost families. At that moment, they had dumbfounded expressions. They were completely stupefied. That wasn't a human, right? That was a ferocious beast in the skin of a human. He had shattered all the bones of an imperishable realm expert with a single punch. He was practically a monster. My God, is this guy a human? I've never heard of a human with such a strong physique. Even the experienced and knowledgeable gods were stunned, as though they had never seen such a ferocious person before. How could this be? He's simply a monster. The rumors are all true. He really single-handedly occupied 4 powerful imperishable realm experts, and even seriously injured and killed them. These experts from the Holy Spirit family were about to go crazy. Even an undead realm expert ended up like this, let alone them. They were almost scared to death. Yi Shiwen sneered. This old man seemed to have a good cultivation, but whether it was Sheng Wu Fa or Chong Mu Su, Their cultivations were far superior to his. They were simply not on the same level. Even Shengwu Fa and Changmu Su weren't his match, let alone this old man. Moreover, after the trip to the 10,000 Law King's tomb, Yi Shiwen had gained a lot of insights. His cultivation continued to soar, and he was already on the verge of a breakthrough. Ling Qiong's expression was extremely strange. She was both shocked and angry. Yi Shiwen's strength was stronger than she had expected. Most importantly, his personality was even more unyielding. It seemed that it was impossible to force Yi Shiwen to hand over the 10,000 Law roulette. That's right, her biggest mission this time wasn't for Shengwu Fa. In the God Burial Starry Sea, even if one died, it would be in vain. This was tacitly agreed by all the major forces. Otherwise, just the number of senior experts who had died in each other's hands was uncountable. Their grudges were enough to last for hundreds of thousands of years. No matter how sorrowful they were, they couldn't use this as a reason to cause trouble. Their real purpose for coming here was for the 10,000 Law roulette. If they could obtain it, then the Holy Spirit aristocratic families would benefit greatly. This was a divine tool left behind by someone who had almost become an emperor. No one knew how many secrets of the heavenly race were hidden in it. Only Elder Gong had a mysterious smile on his face. It seemed as if he had already expected this. Good. In the end, Ling Qiong was enraged. She let out a roar and slammed her palm into the air, bringing with it a monstrous amount of sword qi. The sword qi contained countless lines of the way of the sword. It looked incredibly dazzling and all-encompassing. Holy Spirit sword technique. Yi Shiwen recognized the origin of this sword aura at a glance. Shengwu Fa had also used this Holy Spirit sword technique before. Unfortunately, he still wasn't Yi Shiwen's match in the end. However, Ling Qiong was indeed amazing. Her first move was a mysterious sword technique with boundless might. It directly erupted with the tyrannical strength of an undead realm expert. It's useless. The Holy Spirit sword technique can't do anything to me. Yi Shiwen let out a long and loud shout, and once again blasted out a punch. His fist energy was mighty, just like a long river, and directly collided with the incoming sword key. Rumble! The sword aura and the fist energy directly collided and rolled. The fist energy and the sword energy collided and rolled. A series of explosions directly caused the entire octagonal palace to rumble and shake. The octagonal palace must have gone through some kind of sacrificial ceremony. Such an attack only shook for a moment, and then it completely withstood it. Thump, thump, thump. Ling Qiong retreated again and again. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. In the collision just now, she had actually suffered a loss. She had actually suffered a loss in the hands of an immortal realm expert. At this moment, she truly realized that she had thought of the problem too simply. She had thought that Shengwu Fa was too useless. Now, it seemed that it was not that Shengwu Fa was too useless. Instead, it was that this guy was too strong. He was simply inhumanly strong. Such a person was also lawless. It was simply impossible for her to achieve her goal this time. She looked at Elder Gong again. No wonder this old guy did not move at all. It was probably not that he was frightened, but that he did not take her seriously at all. He had already seen through her that she was definitely not as good as Yi Shiwen. Thinking of this, she could not help but gnash her teeth. Why? Do you still want to try? The corner of Yi Shiwen's mouth twitched, flashing a somewhat mocking smile. However, if you guys come again, then it won't be as simple as teaching you a lesson. You're already so old, yet you still don't know how to distinguish right from wrong. You actually want to ask for something that doesn't belong to you? Although Ling Qiong hadn't stated her intentions, Yi Shiwen had already seen through them. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to take revenge for the holy sage. So, they wanted to denounce the 10,000 method roulette. Otherwise, it would have been the elders of the Sheng family who had come. It would not have been the Ling family's turn to come forward. Ling Qiong's face turned red when she heard Yi Shiwen's words. She almost spat out a mouthful of blood. First, her purpose had been exposed by Yi Shiwen. Second, Yi Shiwen had actually said that she was already so old. Even a deity who did not care much about time would feel ashamed and resentful when she heard Yi Shiwen's words. So old, so old, so old, so old, so old. Puff! She spat out another mouthful of blood. The golden blood was so dazzling, and it contained a formidable power. If a mortal could refine it, then their cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. In the end, Ling Qiong could only bid farewell and leave. Today's goal was already impossible to achieve. Originally, she could have used Sheng Wu Fa's death to put pressure on them. However, Yi Shiwen had easily and cleanly destroyed that kind of environment. After Ling Qiong and the others left, Elder Gong looked at Yi Shiwen with a smile and said, "You're not bad. You did a good job this time. You took back the 10,000 spell roulette and made our hidden valley proud." Yi Shiwen grinned. Although some people hope that you will hand over the 10,000 spell roulette, they are too optimistic. If everyone is like this, then who would dare to work for our hidden valley in the future? Elder Gong said with a smile. If it did not involve the 10,000 spell roulette, this kind of thing would not have happened. The 10,000 spell roulette was really too tempting, Elder Gong reminded. But with the Flame Lord taking care of these troublesome matters for you, I'm sure they won't dare to make a move. However, there are plenty of people coveting the 10,000 spell roulette outside, so it's best that you don't go out in the next 1,000 years. Otherwise, even we won't be able to predict what will happen. Yi Shiwen smiled bitterly again and again, revealing a somewhat helpless smile. 1,000 years wasn't a very long time for a god, especially now. If he was given 1,000 years of closed-door training, it would bring unimaginable benefits to his future path. However, what he lacked the most right now was this time. 12 years later was the arranged battle with venerable immortal Yuan Miao, and a few decades later was Hua Menghan's matchmaking event. He could not miss it. When Elder Gong saw Yi Shiwen's expression, how could he not know that it was impossible to achieve? He could not help but sigh. All right, you can decide this matter yourself. We won't interfere, but you still have to be careful. Thank you for the reminder, Elder. If there's nothing else, then I'll go back first. Yi Shiwen said, and go. Elder Gong waved his hand. After Yi Shiwen left, he did not go back to find Monkey and the others. Instead, he returned to a palace in the hidden city. This was also the preferential treatment of the deities. He did not tell anyone and directly began closed-door training. This time, he wanted to take advantage of the remaining time and rush to the peak of immortal level in one go. At that time, his combat power would change dramatically, and he would be more confident. Chapter 2409. For more than a month, Yi Shiwen had been trying his best to repair his damaged origin. He had consumed hundreds of thousands of divine sources and barely managed to recover his origin. Only now did he have the time to sort out his gains. First of all, there were more than 1,000,000 divine sources. That was enough for him to use for a long time. To an ordinary immortal level, it was an astronomical amount of wealth. Cultivating from beginner immortal level to peak immortal level was no problem at all. However, to Yi Shiwen, it was not that exaggerated. Apart from the divine sources, Tianyuan Mirror had successfully upgraded to a middle-grade god weapon. Tianyuan Mirror had also absorbed the essence and wealth of the peak immortal level and imperishable level powerhouses that Yi Shiwen had killed earlier. It was digesting and absorbing them, and it was rapidly transforming into a high-grade god weapon. Tianyuan Mirror itself was of a very high grade. That was nothing to Tianyuan Mirror. There was also the cultivation of the ruler's sword. This was a supreme sword principle. Among all the sword techniques that Yi Shiwen had cultivated so far, there was no other sword technique that was more powerful and overbearing than the ruler's sword. This was a sword technique that wanted to dominate the world. It belonged to the Heaven Clan's ruler emperor's ultimate skill. In terms of grade, it was definitely not inferior to the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. However, Yi Shiwen had only learned the first form at the moment. Moreover, he could only imitate the first form. He would have to rely on the sword talisman if he wanted to truly analyze it. It was impossible for ordinary people to analyze an Emperor Lord level talisman. However, he could use the mysterious space to analyze it. Of course, it would also require a massive amount of divine sources. Even so, the first form was immensely powerful. With the sword talisman, he would definitely be able to unleash earth-shattering power. The sword talisman contained a portion of an emperor's divine power. That was his biggest reliance. When the time came, he could use it as his trump card. Even if Ao Chaozong was at peak immortal level, Yi Shiwen had a certain degree of confidence that he could injure him severely. However, he only had a vague idea now. He would need a long time to truly refine it as his trump card. Fortunately, there were still several decades left, so there was no need to rush. Moreover, his biggest harvest this time was the 10,000 method roulette. He had originally planned to use the 10,000 method roulette as his trump card. However, the fact that he had obtained the 10,000 method roulette was already known to everyone. Therefore, it would be impossible for him to catch Ao Chaozong off guard. Even so, if the 10,000 spell roulette could be refined well, it would have boundless might. After all, it was a magic tool left behind by a half-step sovereign emperor. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to refine it in a short time, but he had a part of the Dharma King's memories, so he could refine the 10,000 spell roulette bit by bit. Even if he could only refine a bit, it would still be very powerful. But he also discovered that the 10,000 spell roulette was also a flawed top-quality god artifact. In the last battle, when the Law Emperor fell, the 10,000 spell roulette naturally couldn't escape the fate of being destroyed. Its power might not even be a tenth of its peak, but even so, it wasn't inferior to ordinary top-quality god artifacts. These were his gains this time. Whether it was to fight Venerable Yuan Miao or Ao Chaozong, these were indispensable. The most important thing now was to rush his cultivation to peak immortal level in one go. He had been doing this all along, but he was just a little bit short. Only after rushing to peak immortal level would he have a chance to take a look at the indestructible stage. Although his combat power was comparable to an indestructible stage, he was still far from a true indestructible stage. After setting up the defensive formation, Yi Shiwen immediately began his closed-door cultivation plan, no longer caring about the disturbances outside. The Tianyuan mirror constantly floated above his head. Behind him was the Mingxin ancient tree that was growing stronger and stronger, constantly emitting colorful lights that enveloped him. The Tianyuan mirror constantly burned the God Source, along with endless energy and traces of the Great Tao, into Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen's aura was also constantly rising. Various magical powers and martial techniques also manifested around his body. They were constantly revolving around his body. Little by little, his cultivation increased. As the mysterious space constantly poured into the God Source, the information analyzed was getting more and more comprehension of the heavenly Tao poured into Yi Shiwen's mind. Endless spiritual energy constantly revolved around his body, surging into his body. Looking from afar, it was like a huge silkworm cocoon, but it emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Anyone who came close to it would be instantly blown away. The silkworm cocoon was still constantly revolving. Time passed in the blink of an eye when cultivating in the mountains. Bang! The silkworm cocoon instantly exploded, turning into a vast ocean of energy waves, constantly revolving. And within it, Yi Shiwen's figure was revealed. He slowly opened his eyes. All the acupoints in his body opened, and the energy waves that flew away were immediately absorbed back. His cultivation was still rising bit by bit, and the meridians in his body seemed to have experienced a huge expansion. The originally empty parts were suddenly filled with endless energy of the God Source. Another month passed, and he finally opened his eyes. He had finally completely consolidated his cultivation at the peak of immortal level. After a whole 10 years, he finally crossed the barrier of the advanced immortal level and cultivated to the peak of immortal level. His combat power also leaped, rushing to the intermediate level of the undead level. As soon as he came up, he stabilized his realm and was even more powerful than the intermediate level of the undead level. At this moment, he deeply understood that the gods really did not have a lot of time to cultivate. Even though he was so well prepared and used a lot of God Source, it still took him 10 years. In these 10 years, he spent hundreds of thousands of God Source and finally broke through to the peak of immortal level. After this month, he finally consolidated his cultivation at the peak of immortal level. Now, he only had millions of God Source left, but he did not stop. Instead, he immediately began to continue cultivating, but at this time, it was not to improve his cultivation. With his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to have a huge breakthrough in a few years, so he began to focus on the trump card that he had planned. Compared to the 10,000 spell roulette, which was difficult to practice, the Dominator sword technique was easier to practice. It was not easy to speculate, but with the help of this and the sword talisman, everything was much easier. As for the 10,000 spell roulette, he would cultivate it in the future. After making up his mind, he immediately began to activate the sword talisman. In order to understand the sword talisman, he had to first refine the sword talisman so that it would not cause him trouble at the crucial moment. Roar! The sword talisman turned into a human form, constantly struggling, wanting to break free from the god rule chains of Tianyuan Mirror, and burst out a soundless roar. However, how could Yi Shiwen let it succeed? He constantly controlled the Tianyuan Mirror to suppress the sword talisman. Bit by bit, the god's source seeped into it, wanting to refine the sword talisman. In the beginning, the sword talisman continued to resist, and its resistance was very intense. It seemed to be resisting Yi Shiwen's refinement. Unfortunately, with the help of Tianyuan Mirror, the sword talisman was constantly suppressed. In addition to Yi Shiwen's powerful cultivation, it could not be mentioned in the same breath as 10 years ago. Compared to the peak of immortal level, advanced immortal level and peak immortal level were not the same concept at all. They were many times more powerful. Time passed 1 month after another. In the end, the sword talisman's resistance slowly disappeared. Apart from the surging sword intent contained in it, Yi Shiwen had also directly erased the little bit of subjective consciousness that it originally had. He dared not refine the sword talisman into his body without permission when it still had subjective consciousness. Otherwise, he dared not imagine the consequences. After refining the sword talisman, Yi Shiwen immediately began to comprehend the Dominator's sword intent within it. He used the mysterious space to separate the Dominator's sword intent and continued to comprehend the Dominator's sword. The entire process was very arduous. It was indeed an Emperor-level sword technique. It was mysterious and complicated, surpassing any sword technique that Yi Shiwen had cultivated. It could not be compared at all. However, with Yi Shiwen's current ability, it was impossible for him to perform it completely. It was even impossible for him to completely deduce the entire sword technique. Therefore, the Dominator of the world could only be used as a hidden trump card. He could not simply use it. Once he used it, the deterrence would be greatly reduced. It was not that Yi Shiwen did not have an Emperor-level martial technique. However, it was different from the 6 paths of Reincarnation Fist. The Dominator's sword had a sword talisman that could increase its power to a shocking level. However, Yi Shiwen could not produce this kind of sword intent with his current cultivation. Therefore, he could only use it 1 time at a time. According to his estimation, he could use this sword talisman at most 3 times. These 3 times would be his most important trump card. Once he used it 3 times, the sword intent contained in the sword talisman would be exhausted. At that time, he would only be left with the function of comprehension. Originally, the Dominator of the World style already had a prototype. He had imitated the most core part of it. The remaining parts were also gradually deduced by him over the next few years. After a few years, he finally deduced the complete Dominator of the World style. In front of Yi Shiwen, a lightsaber was constantly rotating, undulating up and down. Around this lightsaber, countless sword Dao talismans were constantly rotating. In his body, the sword Dao incarnation was constantly blooming with amazing light. In just a few years, just completely deducing the Dominator of the World style had allowed his sword Dao cultivation to develop by leaps and bounds. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen kept the lightsaber. His figure flashed out of the hall and flew towards the direction of the Heaven Realm. The appointed time of the battle with Senior Immortal Yuan Miao had arrived. Chapter 24:10. The Martial City was the capital city within the entire martial sect sphere of influence. It was located in the southern region of the Heaven Realm and occupied a vast area. It was unknown how many years it had existed for. After experiencing the sharpness of time, it still stood on this piece of land, sitting and watching the clouds roll by. The establishment of Wu Du began when the Qin Emperor first achieved enlightenment. Later, it gradually expanded and finally became one of the few holy lands in the entire Heaven Realm. Although it was not the true location of the martial sect, many experts of the martial sect were stationed there. For the martial sect, the importance of Wu Du was no less than that of the martial sect itself. I've been waiting for so long. Why haven't I seen Yi Shiwen yet? Is he afraid? In Wu Du, people had already begun to discuss the battle between Yi Shiwen and Venerable Yuan Miao. In fact, many people came for this matter. Venerable Yuan Miao had been famous for many years. She had a beautiful appearance and was now a widow. It was unknown how many suitors there were. Yi Shiwen's name had spread from the god burial star sea to the Heaven Realm. This was the words of Venerable Yuan Miao supporters. Their words were full of contempt. Impossible. Who do you think Yi Shiwen is? It's not an exaggeration to say that he is lawless. Even when facing the disciples of the Holy Spirit family and the Heaven Hunter sect, he killed them just like that. How can such a person not appear? It's hard to say. Although the Holy Spirit family and the Heaven Hunter sect are both king-level sects, they are even worse than the Hidden Valley, let alone the martial sect. They are not on the same level at all. On the streets, people came and went without rest. It was hard to tell how many people there were, and there were many hidden experts among them. In fact, it was far from just the human race. There were also many other races who came from the outer realms. It was very lively. Although these foreign races mostly appeared in the appearance of the human race, there were obvious differences compared to the human race. Some had a pair of wings on their bodies, and some had antlers on their heads. It was unknown which race they were from. These were the peerless experts of the various races. Even though they were in the Heaven Realm, the base of the human race, and in Wu Du, they were not nervous at all. They held their heads high and walked confidently. They were not ordinary people. On the streets, humans were the most numerous. However, as citizens of Wu Du, they were naturally more knowledgeable. Many ancient races had appeared before, and this was no secret, so they would not make a fuss about it. Of course, it was even more impossible for them to point fingers at him, because if they did, it was very likely that a war would break out. These alien race experts were not very good-tempered, even in the headquarters of the human race. Yi Shiwen was walking on the street. His mood was calm. He wasn't the slightest bit nervous, even though the war was imminent. Many people around him were talking about him. Clearly, many people had come for him, and there were even quite a few foreign race experts among them. What a tall building. It's actually hidden in the void. Yi Shiwen could see from afar that there was a pavilion floating in the sky above Wu Du. It was shrouded in clouds and mist, and he could only vaguely make out its shape. Below it, countless arrays were activated, constantly blooming with dazzling rays of light, supporting this pavilion so that it would not fall. Yi Shiwen looked over and saw that the entire pavilion was exuding a special kind of light. It gave off a peculiar feeling. Is this a magic tool? Yi Shiwen took a deep breath and said. He opened the eye of redemption, and there was a golden divine light flickering in his eyes. However, he still couldn't see through the entire pavilion. The entire pavilion looked extremely huge, and it looked extremely dazzling as it fell above the clouds. Even with Yi Shiwen's skill, he couldn't see through this pavilion after opening the eye of redemption. Could it be a superb divine tool? TSK, another country bumpkin. Another country bumpkin. He actually wants to see through the Qin Imperial Palace with his naked eyes. There was a sneer around. Yi Shiwen didn't hide when he opened the eye of redemption, and it was seen by the people around him. Yi Shiwen wasn't annoyed, but he was a little puzzled. Qin Imperial Palace. Could this palace be related to the Qin Emperor? He knew that the martial sect was established by the Qin Emperor, and so as Wu Du, there were many miracles manifested by the Qin Emperor, and they were all very famous tourist attractions. It's the most interesting thing to see these foreign country bumpkins who don't understand every day. Someone said with a laugh. Speaking of it, it's another glorious period of history. In the recent ancient times, the Qin emperor was the only one who achieved enlightenment, and his martial arts were invincible in the world. He ended the chaos of the heaven realm, and even fought for the prestige of the human race. It's a pity that he disappeared without a trace like the previous generations of enlightenment. Yeah, now only the Qin imperial palace is left. It is said that this is related to the secret of another powerful emperor. I don't know if it's true or not. I've also heard of it. It seems that many years ago, the emperor clan, Ji clan, came to ask for the Qin imperial palace. It is said that the Ji clan's emperor Shao housed personal Dao tool, 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace. Later, the Qin emperor obtained it by chance, and his name shook the world again, and he fought everywhere. Now, there is also a place called the Qin Imperial Palace. If that's the case, doesn't that mean that the martial sect has 2 Dao tools? Hiss, 2 Dao tools to suppress luck. No wonder the martial sect's luck has become more and more prosperous in recent years. The only ones who can compare to the martial sect are probably the Emperor clan, Ji clan. However, the Qin emperor is so powerful that even the Ji clan did not dare to ask for the Qin imperial palace back when the Qin emperor was still alive. Only after many years after the Qin emperor disappeared did they dare to send people to ask for the 100 birds paying homage to the Phoenix Palace. However, the martial sect will definitely not hand it over. Right now, the Qin imperial palace is the guardian of Wu Du's fate. The martial sect has opened a part of it to the public, called the 100 Birds Paying Homage to the Phoenix Pavilion. It is one of the few holy places for cultivation in the heaven realm. It is said that there is a formation set up by the Qin emperor, so cultivating there will be twice the results with half the effort. That is why the martial sect has produced many experts over the years. Even if the Qin emperor is not around, no one dares to provoke them. Although outsiders like us can also enter the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Pavilion, it is after all only in the peripheral area of the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace. Moreover, the cost is so expensive that it can make a demigod go bankrupt. It is unimaginable. Yi Shiwen listened to the discussion of the crowd and understood that this pavilion was actually a part of a Dao tool. What was a Dao tool? It was a magic tool of the emperor-level characters. For example, the Tianyuan mirror used to be a Dao tool. However, it had suffered a great disaster, and it had lost its power in the past. Now, Yi Shiwen could only try his best to restore it. With a Dao tool, one could create an immortal inheritance and become truly invincible. With 2 Dao tools to suppress luck, the martial sect was really powerful. It had the momentum to soar to the sky. He opened the eyes of redemption and could vaguely see the luck in the shape of a pillar rising to the sky. It was endless and had the momentum to soar to the sky. The luck of the martial sect was at its peak. Especially, the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace actually had the miraculous effect of accelerating cultivation. It was unimaginable what kind of power it had inside. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult for the martial sect not to be strong. You've only heard this kind of rumor, but in fact, I'm afraid it's not the whole truth, said an old man. He was also a god, and he was very old. The style of clothing he wore was completely different from the style of the people of the present. What other rumors are there? Someone asked doubtfully. Although outsiders didn't know, the secret of the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace in Wu Du wasn't too secretive. After such a long time, many things were also known by people. When I was very young and just started to practice, I once heard the elders of the clan mention that the reason why the Qin emperor stationed the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace in Wu Du instead of the martial sect Mountain Gate to protect the luck of the martial sect was to suppress a peerless demon. Moreover, he transferred many elite geniuses of the martial sect to guard this place. After a long time, Wu Du was formed, said the old man. What? How is this possible? Many people were stunned when they heard this. They didn't dare to imagine it. That old man was already very old, so old that it was unimaginable. When he was young, didn't that mean that it was near ancient times? That should be the era when the Qin emperor achieved enlightenment. More importantly, with the power of the Qin emperor, he was invincible. He was invincible in his life, and it was unknown how many opponents he had defeated. It was rumored that he had even defeated people at the Imperial King level. Such a person, who couldn't he kill? Yet he actually had to use the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace to suppress him day and night. Many people felt their hair stand on end. What kind of joke was this? Could it be that they were standing above a huge demon's lair? Many people couldn't accept this statement. It was simply nonsense. Impossible. Let's not talk about what kind of person the Qin Emperor is. How could there be someone who couldn't be killed? Moreover, my clan has lived here for generations. How come I've never heard of it before? I think so too. This is just a rumor. If it's true, it's impossible that there hasn't been any news about it all these years. I think it's more of a rumor. Many people didn't believe it. Yi Shiwen was silent for a moment. He didn't know whether this rumor was true or false. That era was too far away from him. The level of the Qin Emperor was also too far away from him. However, whether it was true or false, it didn't have much to do with him. He came here just to fight with Senior Immortal Yuan Miao. However, he was a bit interested in this 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace. Although it was only a part of the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace, it was also the body of a Dao tool after all. The opportunity to observe a Dao tool at a close distance might only be realized in the whole world in Martial City. Tianyuan Mirror had such potential, but after all, it wasn't a flawless Dao tool. The difference was too big. He immediately flew towards the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Palace. However, the more he flew, the more he discovered that an invisible coercion was pressing down. Although it was only a little bit, it still had a great pressure for mortals. Perhaps, except for demigods, ordinary practitioners couldn't even come up. Chapter 24:11. Upon entering the 100 birds looking at the Phoenix Pavilion, it was like being in the clouds of fairyland on earth. As soon as he stepped onto the stone steps of the 100 birds looking at the Phoenix Pavilion, Yi Shiwen felt the aura under his feet being pulled by a mysterious force. It accelerated towards his body. The spiritual energy was very rich, but it was very strange. It did not liquefy or solidify. There were many mysteries. However, Yi Shiwen believed that this was indeed a holy place for cultivation. However, the cost was probably just like what that person said. It was not something that ordinary people could afford. But for Yi Shiwen, it was nothing. He stepped into the hall of the 100 birds looking at the Phoenix Pavilion. It was like a restaurant. Experts were sitting in 2s and 3s in various corners of the hall. The place was filled with the fragrance of bejeweled wine. There were also all kinds of delicious aromas that stimulated people's taste buds. The aroma of these foods contained all kinds of treasures, which stimulated people's appetites. Their cultivation unconsciously sped up. Yi Shiwen found a corner and sat down. He ordered a pot of celestial wine that was worth 100 divine source. There were also delicacies that were also worth dozens to hundreds of divine source. He slowly ate. He quietly waited for the time of the battle with Senior Immortal Yuan Miao. He glanced around. Indeed, those who could gather here were experts above the deity level. A demigod would indeed go bankrupt if he ate here. He did not dare to stay for long. Even the waiters were above the demigod level. They were very impressive. However, just like the rumors, cultivation here was indeed twice the result with half the effort. This kind of cultivation environment was not something that the outside world could imagine. This time, the coalition's operation to annihilate the heavenly race is really not going well. It is very likely to evolve into a shocking catastrophe. The experience of the heavenly race escaping last time is still vivid in many ancient records. It is a shocking catastrophe. These deities were also discussing the matter of the major forces joining forces to annihilate the heavenly race this time. The celestial race is truly a race blessed by the heavens. Compared to us humans, they are even more so. We humans only have a small number of talents with special bloodlines or outstanding talents. But in the celestial race, almost everyone is a peerless genius. Even the dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins of the past cannot be compared. A human god sighed. Although he had already proven his Tao, he had faced countless hardships along the way. He could understand how passive it was to have an ordinary bloodline. In the first war against the heavens, the ancestral dragon and ancestral phoenix fell, and the Chilean emperor also went into hiding. There were countless casualties. In the second war against the heavens, the demon race, and the human race's emperors fought wave after wave before they were finally exiled. If they break the seal again this time, who can stop them? In recent times, only the Qin emperor has achieved Tao. Even if the Qin emperor reappears, I'm afraid he won't be able to reverse the situation. How come even the princess of the fallen angel clan, Ling Fei, has appeared? Someone exclaimed and looked towards the door, only to see a peerlessly beautiful person appear at the door. She was dressed in a long gray dress, which on others would be a little dull, but on her, it was just right, accentuating her beautiful figure. The pair of gray wings on her back highlighted her identity as a member of the race. Yi Shiwen, who had lowered his head to drink and pondered, also raised his head when he heard this. He looked straight into Ling Fei's eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his face. This race is extraordinary. Almost every one of them is a peerless genius of their generation. They are very handsome. It is said that this Princess Ling Fei is a well-known figure among them. In the devil world, only the succubus and the Azura race can compare in beauty with the fallen angel race. Someone exclaimed in a low voice, "I've heard that she has come for her elder brother." Her elder brother, Ling Tian Lucifer, went into closed-door training several hundred years ago and entered the Creation's Arkansas. He has now come out of his closed-door training. He says that he wants to marry the Emperor's concubine, Qin Shuang, and establish a good relationship between the two clans. What? Is there such a thing? Isn't Qin Shuang the great-granddaughter of the Qin Emperor? She has already become famous in the world at such a young age. Her strength and innate talent are quite extraordinary. She is a princess in the martial sect, and people call her the Emperor's concubine. However, Qin Shuang is a heaven's pride expert of our human race. So, why should she marry an outsider? A human god said in a discontented manner. It was obvious that he had some feelings for Qin Shuang. That's right. However, Ling Fei is also a famous beauty of the fallen angel clan. I just don't know who she will marry in the future. And I don't know which pig she'll end up with. Cough, cough. Yi Shiwen almost couldn't breathe as he heard these words. He choked on the food and wine and started coughing again and again. Why did these words sound so unpleasant to the ears? However, I've also heard of Ling Tian's name. He's a battle maniac. He had challenged the experts of various clans several hundred years ago before he had gone into closed-door training. He had beheaded gods when he was still a demigod. He's very powerful. Some heaven's pride experts of our human race have fallen at his hands. But he has dared to appear here. I'm afraid that there are many victims of his in the heavenly realm. However, they have come here on behalf of the fallen angel clan. So, the martial sect can't let anything happen to them here for the sake of their reputation. Brother, I wonder if it's convenient for me to sit here? Ling Fei's voice arrived first. A delicate fragrance assailed his nostrils. She had a faint smile on her face. Sit, sit. Yi Shiwen's face exposed a bitter smile as he said. Ling Fei arrived in front of him and suddenly attracted the gazes of the entire hall. Ling Fei was like the bright moon in the sky compared to him. She was the most eye-catching existence wherever she went. Who is this person? He knows Princess Ling Fei? Someone asked. He looks unfamiliar. I've never seen him before. He looks familiar to me. I just don't know where I've seen him before. How come you've also come to the heavenly realm? Oh, I've asked in vain. You've come here because of your brother's matter, Yi Shiwen said to himself. Ling Fei indifferently said, Do I need to report to you before I come here? I've just arrived in the heavenly realm. But there are rumors everywhere about the fight between you and that old woman. TSK, TSK. Well, don't be so weird. Just speak frankly if you have something to say. Yi Shiwen helplessly smiled and said, Do you know what to do with this little girl? He had almost been captured and turned into a pet when they had first met. He had lost all his face. Speak. Why didn't you come to see me? Didn't you say that you would come to see me? It's been several hundred years, and I haven't seen your shadow. I don't know when I would have seen you if I hadn't arrived in the heavenly realm. Ling Fei stared at Yi Shiwen with her beautiful eyes. She was trying to display a little dignity. However, her cute appearance and pouting red lips made her look like she was trying to act cute. I'm busy. I've spent a lot of time in order to prove my Tao in these several hundred years. So, where would I find the time to look for you? Moreover, the Devil World's fallen angel clan is a dangerous place. I don't know if I'll come out alive if I go there. Yi Shiwen said, Nonsense. What danger is there? I've come to the heavenly realm for nothing. Let's see who would dare to touch me. Ling Fei stared at him. She frowned and said, Please, eldest Mississippi. You're the princess of the fallen angel clan. Moreover, you've come here for the marriage of the two clans. Who would dare to make things difficult for you? I'll be hacked to death in minutes if I go to the Devil World. Yi Shiwen helplessly said. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't go to the Devil World. However, he still had to disguise himself. So he couldn't swagger in like Ling Fei. There were countless grievances between the human and devil races. Countless senior experts from both sides had died tragically at the hands of the other side. So, there was no such thing as resolving it. It's all an excuse. Don't you have a concealment technique? You look more like the genuine fallen angel clan when you disguise yourself. Ling Fei's elegant eyebrows twitched as she coldly said. Both of them were communicating using their divine senses. Therefore, no one knew what they were talking about. They could only see that Ling Fei's expression was constantly changing. However, everyone could see that the relationship between these two wasn't shallow. Many people were guessing what this guy's background was. He was actually acquainted with the little princess of the fallen angel clan. Yi Shiwen was about to explain when he suddenly saw another silhouette at the door. It was another expert of a different race. However, he was a young man. He looked very similar to a human. However, he had a single horn on his forehead. However, he didn't look cumbersome. Instead, he looked dignified and had a sharp aura. This man walked over to Ling Fei's side and exposed a smile on his face. Your Highness, Princess Ling Fei, my name is Du Tian. I'm the son of the current patriarch of the One-Horn clan. Our two clans have been friends for many years. I've also heard of your Highness for a long time. I wonder if I can have the honor of sitting at the same table as your Highness, Princess? The One-Horned Man opened his mouth and said. He had completely ignored Yi Shiwen. No, Ling Fei coldly replied. She didn't even cast a glance at him. Please go back. Go and look for my elder brother if you want to talk about the relationship between our two clans. He's also here. Du Tian's complexion alternated between green and white. He hadn't expected that he would be rejected in such an ice-cold manner in front of so many people. This ice-cold beauty was even colder than the rumors. Go and look for that battle, maniac Ling Tian. He felt that his legs were cramping as he thought about it. It would be shameful if I lost, but it would be more troublesome if I won. That lunatic will keep looking for you until he wins. Du Tian didn't want to leave at this time. He had finally found this opportunity with great difficulty. He was about to open his mouth again. However, he saw that Yi Shiwen's complexion had suddenly turned cold, and he said, Didn't you hear? She told you to get lost. Is your hearing not good? Ling Fei playfully winked at Yi Shiwen from a place where everyone couldn't see. She meant that Yi Shiwen had done a good job. What did you say? Du Tian's complexion suddenly became serious. It was fine if he had been rejected by Ling Fei in public. However, this ignorant human also wanted to get involved. Moreover, this guy had dared to sit at the same table as Ling Fei. This was simply intolerable. Don't you understand human words? Yi Shiwen insipidly asked. I think you're courting death. Chapter 24:12. I think you're courting death. Du Tian was furious and grabbed Yi Shiwen's head directly. He was going to crush Yi Shiwen's head on the spot. How could Yi Shiwen be at a disadvantage? He immediately made his move. He stretched out his hand and slapped Du Tian twice. Slap! Slap! Two loud slaps rang out, and Du Tian's face immediately swelled up from the slaps. Everyone was stunned. What a fast speed! No one saw when Yi Shiwen made his move. They could only see a shadow. Yi Shiwen's big hand passed through the layers of defense and slapped Du Tian's face fiercely. Just who was this person? He had just randomly picked Du Tian. Of course, Du Tian wasn't too guarded against him, but this young man's strength was enough to make everyone raise their eyebrows. You! Du Tian was dead. His eyes were red, and the horn on his head was constantly flashing with divine light. He was mad. He was born in a noble family and was considered a powerful clan. He was the son of the clan leader. It could be said that he grew to immortal level smoothly. No one had ever dared to disobey him like this. He was even slapped twice. The horn on his head burst into a dazzling light. The divine light condensed into an air pillar and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Stubborn. Yi Shiwen sneered and stretched out his big hand. It turned into a huge palm and slapped out. The air pillar that was blasted towards him was directly dispersed on the spot. Then, the big hand slapped Du Tian's face again without slowing down. Bang! There was a loud collision sound, and sparks flew everywhere. Yi Shiwen slapped Du Tian's face, and sparks flew everywhere. Du Tian screamed, and his whole body was slapped away. His body flew out of the Phoenix Pavilion like a meteor. What kind of magic is this? What kind of strength is this? Many people were shocked. Almost all the people present were God-level masters. However, even with their eyesight, they could not see how Yi Shiwen made his move. They could only see that Yi Shiwen slapped Du Tian away in a split second. It was impossible for him to send an immortal-level powerhouse flying so easily unless he had an overwhelming ability. Everyone was speechless. What kind of tyrannical strength was this? It was simply unimaginable. Ah! Outside the Phoenix Palace, Du Tian's loud roar could be heard. He had been slapped in the face twice by Yi Shiwen, and he was about to go crazy. Ling Fei beamed with joy as she winked at Yi Shiwen. This made Yi Shiwen feel both angry and amused. These people are so annoying. They only know how to fly around like flies. They are so annoying. Ling Fei said straightforwardly. She was the little princess of the fallen angel clan. So, she naturally had many pursuers on a normal day. Moreover, she had a straightforward temperament. So, she couldn't bear these social interactions. She was extremely annoying. Therefore, she had hinted Yi Shiwen to attack. In order to quell the anger of this little princess, Yi Shiwen had no choice but to take advantage of the situation. Moreover, Yi Shiwen also disliked this guy. Both of them went out of the Phoenix Palace. A large group of people followed behind them. Everyone looked towards this place. Du Tian's imposing aura was unceasingly erupting in the sky. He didn't care where he was at this moment. He only wanted to take revenge. His hands tore apart layers of divine radiance. A huge precious technique pounced towards Yi Shiwen. It carried boundless multicolored clouds and bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. He still wanted to suppress Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen took a step forward. His body blossomed with dazzling and gorgeous rays of light. It was as bright as the sun. It had a terrifying might that could incinerate the 9 heavens. A punch blasted out. The terrifying fist energy streaked across the vast sky in a split second. Du Tian's powerful attack was smashed by Yi Shiwen. Bang! Du Tian was bombarded on the spot. His entire body was sent flying upside down. Numerous cracks appeared on his body. His body had almost been smashed to pieces by Yi Shiwen's punch. Don't blame me for starting a massacre if you keep bothering me, Yi Shiwen said coldly. At this moment, no one doubted Yi Shiwen's words anymore. They didn't know how strong Yi Shiwen was until now. It was because he had played it down. Du Tian couldn't withstand a single blow compared to him. Du Tian stopped his body in midair with great difficulty. There wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't aching. It seemed as if his entire body was about to be torn apart. He just stared at Yi Shiwen hatefully. He even hated Ling Fei. How could he have provoked such a monster if it wasn't for her? Yi Shiwen simply ignored his resentful eyes. Ling Fei saw it, but she didn't care. Could it be that Du Tian dared to do anything? In the end, he could only leave in embarrassment under the watchful eyes of everyone. Many people looked at Yi Shiwen strangely. It seemed as if they wanted to find out Yi Shiwen's identity. He actually dared to completely disregard Du Tian. This human is really strong. However, this is the territory of the human race. Many foreign race experts have come here during this period of time. I'm afraid that someone will find trouble with him soon. Not to mention that he has a relationship with Princess Ling Fei. He's really too strong. He shouldn't be in the eternal realm, right? Looking at his age, he's absolutely very young. When did such a matchless character appear in the human race? Many people thought to themselves. Many of the gods present were experts of the alien races, and they had all been invited here. He can't be the Yi Shiwen, can he? Someone suddenly said suspiciously. A matchless heavens pride expert of the human race had appeared here at this time. It was very likely that he was that Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen didn't care about everyone's doubts. He and Ling Fei returned to the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Pavilion. However, they saw that an old beggar was already sitting on his original seat. It was the same old beggar that Yi Shiwen had encountered when he had first entered the Heaven Realm. At this time, the old beggar was unceremoniously eating the dishes that Yi Shiwen had ordered. From time to time, he would pour the bejeweled nectar into his mouth. Ling Fei was about to step forward and question him. However, she saw Yi Shiwen quickly stepping forward. He cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, old senior. I haven't seen you for 200 years. You're still in good health. Congratulations." Ling Fei saw Yi Shiwen's attitude and didn't say anything. She just looked at him quietly. The old beggar glanced at Yi Shiwen and said with a smile, "You only know how to say nice things. This old beggar hasn't changed much in the past few hundred years. But your cultivation has made great progress in such a short time. More than 200 years ago, you were still a little short of proving your Tao. Now, you've reached such a level. Amazing, really amazing. Senior is overpraising me," Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Hee, I know very well whether I'm overpraising you or not. But it's a pity that a person like you didn't join our martial sect. Instead, you joined the Hidden Valley. The old beggar sighed. He was still brooding over this matter even now. In his opinion, a talented person like Yi Shiwen should have joined the martial sect. However, the martial sect was big. However, the human race was scattered all over the world. So, it was impossible to catch all the talented people in one fell swoop. So, there would always be some who wandered about outside. He took another sip of the immortal nectar. He then clicked his tongue and said, "It's really good wine and delicious food. Life is short. Sigh. This old beggar can't afford this kind of place. I'm borrowing your light. You don't mind, right?" "As you wish, senior." Yi Shiwen smiled and said. Yi Shiwen thought that the old beggar was joking at first. After all, he couldn't see through the old beggar's cultivation. So, how could he not be able to afford it? The Phoenix Pavilion was extremely expensive. However, it wasn't that exaggerated. Moreover, the old beggar was a member of the martial sect. However, he immediately reacted. The old beggar didn't need to joke about this matter. Perhaps this was his Tao. In fact, it was a completely different Tao. Every Tao could prove one's Tao. And there were all kinds of strange people. The person behind you is that little girl of the Fallen Angel clan. I've heard that she's here for that girl Qin Shuang. The old beggar glanced at Ling Fei and said. Yi Shiwen respected the old beggar a lot. However, Ling Fei didn't have a favorable impression of him. So, she didn't say anything. The old beggar didn't care. He just mischievously smiled. He didn't care about Ling Fei's attitude. Who's that old beggar? This man is so lawless. How come he's so respectful to him? Someone asked in a low voice. They had seen how powerful Yi Shiwen was a moment ago. Du Tian had been blasted out of the Phoenix Pavilion by him. He hadn't given him any face. You don't even know him. He's the legendary beggar god of the martial sect. It said that he had followed the Qin Emperor to war a long time ago. He has a very high status in the martial sect. However, his Tao is very special. It's completely different from ordinary people. He's the beggar god. I've heard of the beggar god's name, even though I'm in the outer domain. It's no wonder that this man is so respectful to him. Everyone became respectful after they knew the old beggar's identity. However, This was also the first time that Yi Shiwen knew the old beggar's true identity. The old beggar hadn't shown his face for many years. Many people in the martial metropolis weren't loyal to the martial sect for generations. So, they knew many secrets. Otherwise, they wouldn't have known the old beggar's identity. The old beggar's cultivation had become more and more profound over the years. He had become unfathomable. His whereabouts had also become more and more erratic. It was very difficult for ordinary people to see him. Your brother has come to propose marriage, right? But as far as I know, your fallen angel tribe isn't the only tribe that is interested in Qin Shuang. There is another outstanding person who has also come to propose marriage. He isn't bad either. The old beggar looked at Ling Fei and said with a faint smile, "Who can compare with my brother?" Ling Fei pouted her small mouth and said. Her words were filled with incomparable self-confidence. In her heart, no outstanding person in the world could compare with her genius brother. Speaking of which, Yi Shiwen, this person is also somewhat related to you. I think he's from your tribe as far as I know. What's his name? Yi Su Kong, right? Chapter 24:13. Speaking of which, Yi Shiwen, this person is also somewhat related to you. As far as I know, he seems to be from the same race as you. What's his name? Yi Shukong, right? The old beggar said a name that Yi Shiwen had never expected. It was actually Yi Shukong. After the Abyss Devil Lord attacked the Imperial Court, Yi Shiwen returned. Rumor had it that Yi Shukong had returned, but he had never returned. It had been a long time since Yi Shiwen last saw him. Yi Shiwen didn't expect to see him here. For others, it was even more shocking. The old beggar didn't intend to hide for Yi Shiwen and directly called out his name. Everyone was shocked. It's him. No wonder, he's the audacious Yi Shiwen. He's stronger than expected. I don't know if Senior Yuan Miao can handle him. Didn't someone say that he didn't dare to show up? I didn't expect him to really dare to show up. Many people were discussing in low voices. They didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of the old beggar, but they were still very shocked. Yi Shiwen didn't care that everyone already knew his identity. He was just a little shocked, but he quickly calmed down. We've met before, but I haven't seen him for a long time. I didn't expect him to be in the martial sect. Did he join the martial sect? Asked Yi Shiwen. Well, he was just admitted into the martial sect some time ago because he had been cultivating with an old guy in the martial sect. He was only admitted into the martial sect when he came back some time ago. He's young, about the same age as you. His cultivation isn't bad either. He's already proven his Dao many years ago. The old beggar looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "This kid's luck is not bad. That old guy has a strange temper and doesn't easily accept disciples. I don't know why he took a fancy to him. He's really lucky to have that old guy by his side and giving him guidance day and night." Yi Shiwen didn't ask who it was, but judging from the old beggar's tone, it might be a powerful king-level powerhouse. At the very least, it might be a powerful existence like the Flame Lord. It was indeed lucky to be able to cultivate with such a powerful existence. You're saying that the person who is competing with my brother is that Yi Shukong? Ling Fei immediately frowned and asked. Needless to say, the relationship between the two siblings was very good. Seeing a competitor appear, they were naturally unhappy. She was not scheming. If she liked it, she liked it. If she didn't like it, she didn't like it. Yes, little girl, that is your brother's rival. Yi Shukong's talent is not bad, and with that old man's guidance day and night, it's hard to say who will win. Hee, the old beggar said with a smile. I've eaten your food. This news is my reward for it, the old beggar said. After that, the old beggar disappeared into the sky, as if he had never of. Everyone was moved. This battle was going to be even more interesting. In addition to this news, the matter of Yi Shukong and Ling Tian was also spread by the deities who were in the know, causing an uproar. Qin Shuang was one of the most outstanding geniuses among the descendants of the Qin family. In this generation, there was probably only Qin Lai who could be comparable to her. These two were like the twin stars of the Qin family. As for the other party involved, although Ling Tian was a fallen angel, his name had already spread far and wide. Even in the heaven realm, there were many who had heard of his name. As for Yi Shukong, who was rumored to be competing with Ling Tian, he was much more unknown. It was as if he had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Before this, no one knew about him at all. Even the news that came from the inside of the martial sect was that he had recently joined the martial sect. He was regarded as one of the newly promoted martial sect deities. These two matters had become the most popular topics in the martial sect recently. Whether it was the battle between Yi Shiwen and senior immortal Yuan Miao, or the competition between Ling Tian and Yi Shukong, many people thought that it was an excellent topic for gossip. After a few days, the other of the twin stars of the Qin family, Qin Lai, came out of seclusion and held a small gathering. He invited many heroes of the Heaven Realm and the geniuses of the foreign clans to attend. There were even rumors that Qin Shuang would also appear at this gathering. Hence, this gathering became the focal point of countless people's attention. The location of the gathering was in a garden in the Phoenix Palace. The Phoenix Palace occupied a vast area. There were small bridges, flowing water, pavilions, terraces, and pavilions. It was very beautiful. One should know that the Phoenix Palace was rumored to be the palace of Emperor Xiao Hao. There were countless pavilions and halls in it. The Phoenix Palace was just one of them. This time, the location of the gathering was in the Phoenix Palace. Many people would come even if they wanted to see the Phoenix Palace. One should know that if one was not a member of the martial sect, it was impossible for others to even get close. The Phoenix Palace was already the limit that they could get close to. However, it was originally just a small gathering. Only some of his close friends were invited. Qin Lai had cultivated for many years and traveled around the world. He had many close friends. Many of the people who came this time were also his good friends. Who would have thought that the number of people who came in the end would be more than 10 times more than expected? Not only many heroes of the human clan, but almost all the foreign clan experts who came from the foreign clans also appeared at this gathering. Ao Yin of the Fire Dragon Palace has arrived. This is also a powerful inheritance that cannot be provoked. It is said that the Palace Lord of the Fire Dragon Palace is also a good brother of Emperor Qin. Later on, he established the Fire Dragon Palace independently on the Dragon Island. He is also very powerful. Moreover, he has a good relationship with the people of the martial sect. Someone saw a group of people wearing fiery robes walking in with majestic steps. The person in the lead was a young man with a heroic aura. His eyebrows and hair were scarlet red. From afar, they looked like balls of flames. That is a monk from the minor Western Paradise. It is also a sect with a long history. There are countless experts in the sect. Do you see that tall monk? It is said that he is the strongest descendant of the minor Western Paradise, Monk Huijin. His 6-word mantra has already been cultivated to an extremely profound level. It is said that they have a very good relationship with Qin Lai. Who would have thought that this is just a small gathering? I didn't expect that they would all be here. That was a tall and muscular monk. His face was somewhat ferocious, like the legendary Vajra. He looked to be around 30 years old and was wearing a golden kasaya. It looked very bright. There were all kinds of heaven's pride and outstanding people in this small gathering. These people were undoubtedly the most outstanding people. I also want to see if Qin Shuang has come. She is also a famous beauty in the Heaven Realm. It is said that she obtained a kind of inheritance left by Emperor Qin when she was young. Her future is limitless. She is highly valued in the martial sect. Although the Fallen Angel clan has a good plan, I'm afraid it won't be easy for them to marry Qin Shuang. Haven't you heard that even Yi Shiwen will appear this time? Although Yi Shiwen and senior immortal Yuan Miao are not on good terms, he has a very good relationship with Qin Lai. Many people were startled. Yi Shiwen was one of the protagonists of the 2 recent events. Apart from Qin Shuang, Yi Shiwen would also appear. This made many people quite surprised. Yi Shiwen didn't seem to have the intention to keep a low profile ever since he arrived in the Heaven Realm. He had become more and more high profile. Hey, who is that person? He is so powerful. He actually broke through the void and came here. You should know that this is the 100 birds worshipping Phoenix Palace. How did he do it? Someone was surprised to find that a figure had appeared directly in front of them. Everyone looked over and stared at him. They saw that it was a young man with an unbelievably handsome face. His figure was lean, and his long hair was tied behind his back. It was dark gray in color, and there was a pair of gray wings on his back that gently fluttered along with his body movements. This is a fallen angel. However, there are not many fallen angels here. There are only a few of them. At this age, he has such cultivation. He must be Ling Tian. Someone analyzed the situation and almost cried out. Speak of the devil. They were still discussing these two events just now. At this time, one of the protagonists appeared directly. This really made everyone feel a little guilty. If it is really him, then it should be right. It is normal to have such strength. It is rumored that he has fought many hidden demon gods in the devil realm at a young age. His strength is so strong that there is no second person in the fallen angel generation. He is really strong. I can't even sense a little bit of his aura. This kind of ability is simply unimaginable. He is really strong, everyone exclaimed. At this time, Ao Yin and Monk Hui Zhen, who were originally the focus of everyone, raised their heads and looked at Ling Tian. A faint smile flashed across the corner of their mouths. In particular, Monk Hui Zhen looked as if he had seen a rare opponent. There was a somewhat excited expression on his face. The muscles on his face were trembling. Facing the intense gaze of these two people, Ling Tian didn't care at all. He walked directly in. Among the pavilions, two silhouettes appeared and immediately attracted the attention of many people. One of them was a man dressed in cyan robes. His steps were light, and he didn't look imposing at all. He didn't even seem to have much strength. However, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 24:14. Yi Shiwen has arrived. Sure enough, the rumor says that he is dressed in cyan clothes. So, the one next to him should be Princess Ling Fei of the Fallen Angel clan. How come they are together again? The appearance of these two people immediately made everyone a little excited. Both of them were the protagonists of the most talked about recently. So, how could they not compare each other in their hearts? Whether it was Yi Shiwen or Ling Tian, both of them were the targets of comparison. Ling Tian looked at the door after hearing these noises. Sure enough, he saw his younger sister standing beside a man with a slight frown. He strode forward and arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. Then, he opened his mouth and said, "Are you the Yi Shiwen? Brother?" Ling Fei pouted when she saw him being so overbearing, and she refused to back down. "That's right. I'm Yi Shiwen. You must be Ling Fei. It's our first time meeting. I've heard so much about you." Yi Shiwen replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. However, his gaze was also fixated on Ling Tian. He wouldn't give in even the slightest. The two of them seemed to be opposing each other with equal harshness. Neither of them would give in to the other. The scene looked a little strange. Many people began to feel nervous in their hearts. The script wasn't written like this. They wanted to see the conflict between Yi Shiwen and senior immortal Yuan Miao, as well as the battle between Ling Tian and Yi Shukong. However, many people were also hoping that a conflict would break out between these two. After all, there were many people who wanted to see a conflict break out between these two. Not bad. Ling Tian looked at Yi Shiwen from top to bottom and said. His tone was cold and arrogant. It seemed that he was very satisfied with Yi Shiwen's performance a moment ago. He didn't feel anything because of Yi Shiwen's confrontation a moment ago. "You're worthy of a name." Yi Shiwen nodded and said, "You blockhead, what the hell are you talking about?" Ling Fei was helpless. Isn't Yi Shiwen adding fuel to the fire? Worthy of a name. Ha ha ha. Ling Tian laughed wildly. "You're the first person to say this in so many years. You're the first person to dare to question my strength. However, I didn't come to look for you today. Let's compare notes when we have time in the future. My younger sister isn't that easy to marry." "Brother!" Ling Fei's small face turned red. She shot a glance at Yi Shiwen and pulled the corner of her clothes. In fact, she almost tore her clothes off. "What? Why can't you let me talk about it? You ran out time and time again to see him, right?" Ling Tian said with a straight face, trying to regain some of his dignity as an elder brother. "Say it again." Ling Fei raised her small eyebrows and angrily said. Yi Shiwen was greatly embarrassed. It seemed as if Ling Fei had run out especially for him. However, He had bumped into her when she had been running away. "Any time," Yi Shiwen said. The surrounding people were confused as they heard this. Why does it sound like something is wrong? What kind of relationship does Yi Shiwen have with Ling Fei? No one has ever said anything about this. However, some people who had some understanding of Yi Shiwen were even more baffled. After all, wasn't Yi Shiwen and the Heavenly Phoenix girl Hua Menghan a couple according to their information? So, how come he was having an affair with Ling Fei at this time? The doubts in everyone's hearts were getting deeper and deeper. It seemed as if they didn't understand what kind of situation this was. Ao Yin and Monk Huizhen had already appeared in front of them. Ao Yin said, "You are Yi Shiwen, right? It's rare for Qin Lai to give such a high evaluation of a person. Now that I've met him today, you're indeed an outstanding talent of the generation. He didn't misjudge us. We are good brothers. Since you're his good friend, you're naturally my good friend too. Let's get to know each other. I'm Ao Yin from the Fire Dragon Palace." "I'm Monk Huizhen from the Minor Western Paradise," Monk Huizhen said. Whether it was the Fire Dragon Palace or the Minor Western Paradise, both of them were well-known king bestowal sections. However, they were different from ordinary king bestowal sections. Therefore, these two sects had an extremely good relationship with the martial sect due to their ancestors. Both of them had set up their headquarters in the Heaven Realm, and they rarely went to the outside world. Therefore, not many people knew about the background of these two sections. Only a few disciples of each generation would travel outside, and they seemed to be relatively low-key, especially the Fire Dragon Palace. It was said that the Palace Lord of the Fire Dragon Palace was a member of the Remnant Dragon clan in the Demon Realm. Later, he followed the Qin Emperor to war and made great contributions. His strength was also one of the few powerful king bestowal powerhouses. Later, he became independent and established his own Fire Dragon Palace, and took root in the Heaven Realm. This set off a huge uproar in the Dragon Island at that time. Although there were many Dragon Clan members on the Dragon Island, and there were also some who established their own forces, none of them had left the Dragon Island. They all had to rely on the deterrence of the Dragon Island to survive, and the strength of the Dragon Island was also accumulated bit by these people. Therefore, the actions of the Fire Dragon Palace caused an earthquake in the Dragon Palace. If it wasn't for the Qin Emperor, the Dragon Island would have sent an army to conquer them. However, later on, the Fire Dragon Palace's old ancestor was extremely unyielding. He simply killed his way to the Dragon Island and defeated the Island Lord of the Dragon Island at that time. He was given the title of number 1 in the Dragon Clan. Later on, the Dragon Island finally acquiesced to the arrogant actions of the Fire Dragon Palace's Palace Lord. However, after that, the Fire Dragon Palace was relatively low-key and developed in the Heaven Realm. Their relationship with the martial sect was also extremely good. They were an offensive and defensive alliance that everyone knew. It was said that the Minor Western Paradise also had a great background. Some people also said that they were originally in the martial sect. Later on, it was just that the two kings had become king bestowal, and they each became independent. In fact, in the eyes of many people, the three sects were also a trinity, advancing and retreating together. Yi Shiwen quickly cupped his hands and said, "Yi Shiwen, from the Hidden Valley. In that case, we are all friends. After the gathering, let's have a good drink," the glaring Buddhist Huizhen said with a smile. The muscles on his face were trembling. Yi Shiwen was a little dumbfounded. Wasn't it said that monks should be clean and pure? Wine, meat, and beauties were taboo. Why did this person look like he was eager to try? Don't care about him. He's just a monk who drinks wine and meat. The elders of the Minor Western Paradise can't control him even if they want to. They can only let him do whatever he wants. Ao Yin saw that Yi Shiwen didn't understand and said with a laugh, "What do you know? This is the Zen that I practice. As the saying goes, wine and meat pass through the intestines, but the Buddha stays in the heart." Monk Huizhen said in a serious manner, "Come on, Zen. I have never heard of anyone practicing the Zen of wine and meat. You just can't control your mouth," Ao Yin said unceremoniously. Monk Huizhen chuckled and didn't explain. On the other hand, the siblings Ling Tian and Ling Fei were left out. However, the siblings were arrogant people. They wouldn't take the initiative to talk to Ao Yin and Huizhan when they ignored them. Hey, this is an ancient medicine. I'm afraid it's 10,000 years old, someone exclaimed. I also see a tens of thousands of years old ginseng here. Hiss, it's a kind of blood ginseng. It has already taken the form of a human. It can practice by itself. There's also the supreme dragon beard grass. This is a legendary herb. Everyone was shocked. Even the knowledgeable deities were no different from country bumpkins at this time. It wasn't that there weren't ancient medicines that were tens of thousands of years old in the heavenly realm. Although they were very rare, it wasn't that they hadn't seen them before. However, they had never encountered such a scene that could be seen everywhere. Moreover, the ancient medicines that grew here were many times stronger than those that grew outside. The medicinal efficacy of the same age might be 10 times or even dozens of times different. This was a peerless treasure that could only grow in the 100 birds paying respect to the Phoenix Palace. It's really a place with treasures everywhere. No wonder the martial sect has become more and more prosperous these years. With this 100 birds paying respect to the Phoenix Palace, not only can it suppress the destiny, but it is also a huge treasure house. Just a glimpse of the tip of the iceberg is already so amazing. If we could see the whole picture, it will be really amazing. Is that Yishuan here? The dignity of the One-Horn clan can't be trampled so easily. Suddenly, a few figures appeared at the door. Each of these people had tyrannical cultivation, but they all had a common characteristic, which was a single horn on the top of their heads. Their bodies exuded an extremely dangerous aura. After they came in, their gazes swept across everyone, especially the middle-aged man who was the leader. His eyes were filled with killing intent, which had a kind of intimidating feeling. Many people suddenly quieted down and didn't dare to say anything for fear of attracting trouble. At this time, they all remembered the matter of Du Tian being taught a lesson by Yi Xuan some time ago. This matter had caused a huge commotion. It had spread along with the matter of soaring heaven Yi Su Kong. Du Tian would be mentioned every time Yi Xuan was mentioned. This had caused him to lose a lot of face. In fact, many people had started to look down on the One-Horn clan. Now it was very obvious that the One-Horn clan had come to look for trouble and to get back at them. At this time, no one wanted to provoke the already furious One-Horn clan, so as to avoid getting into trouble. The One-Horn clan definitely couldn't let this matter go. It would have been fine if Yi Xuan hadn't appeared, but now that he had appeared, how could they not get back at him? No one wanted to cause trouble, and no one wanted to show them the way. The One-Horn clan was not to be trifled with, and they were in a violent rage. Could it be that Yi Xuan was easy to provoke? Not to mention his tyrannical and unfathomable strength. Not many people would dare to cause trouble even for the sake of the Hidden Valley. However, it was obvious that the One-Horn clan was thoroughly enraged. Du Tian was the son of their clan leader, and teaching Du Tian a lesson was simply making their clan lose face. Not long after they arrived, another figure suddenly appeared in the teleportation formation at the entrance. Chapter 24:15. This was a proud figure. After a burst of divine light, he appeared in front of everyone. He wore a pale golden robe, had a handsome face, and was tall and slender. There was a faint, powerful aura on his body. He was also an outstanding person. As soon as he came in, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. I remember, this is Yi Shukong. He is that Yi Shukong. He is even more dazzling than I thought. Rumor has it that he activated the bloodline of the gods when he was a mortal and forcefully entered the realm of proving Tao. Although he is not famous in the heaven realm, he seems to have made a big name in the outer territory because he followed a great figure of the martial arts sect to cultivate. Amazing to be able to activate the bloodline of the gods when he was a mortal, unless it was a direct descendant of the gods for a few generations. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. No wonder his cultivation is so good. But I heard that this Yi Shukong and Yi Shiwen seem to be from the same clan. That Yi clan is really amazing. I've never heard of such a small clan, but they actually produced 2 peerless geniuses in a row. Their luck really exploded. Someone said secretly. The voice was faint, and it was impossible to find out who said it. Everyone's eyelids twitched. Now that the One-Horn clan was looking for Yi Shiwen, someone actually led the topic here. It was obvious that they were hoping for a conflict between the two sides. It seemed that Yi Shiwen had been in the limelight recently, but he had also offended a lot of people. Yi Shukong's expression did not change, but he frowned. He had also heard this. During this time, the rumors about Yi Shiwen were simply clamoring, and he was also one of the main characters of the two recent major events. He never thought that after hundreds of years, he would have the opportunity to meet an old friend of the Yi clan. It was just that he could not find Yi Shiwen. Coming to this gathering, it was not that he did not want to see Yi Shiwen again. However, he did not expect that the topic would be immediately picked on him. Yi Shiwen's clansmen? The One-Horn clan immediately looked at Yi Shukong with unfriendly expressions. Although they also understood that someone might be provoking them, it did not matter to them. Since Yi Shukong was one of Yi Shiwen's clansmen, if they could deal with him, it would also be a kind of humiliation to Yi Shiwen. Seeing that everyone from the One-Horn clan was looking at him, Yi Shukong suddenly became furious. Did they think he was a soft persimmon? All of a sudden, his aura burst forth. He had been cultivating outside all these years, and his cultivation had already reached an extremely terrifying level. He exuded an aura of might without being angry. The golden light around his body made him look like a golden sun. The experts of the one-horned race also unleashed their auras and stared coldly at Yi Shukong. Their expressions were cold, as if they were looking at a dead man. Everyone was startled. The one-horned race was not to be trifled with. In the outer region, this race was rather famous. There were many deity-level experts in the race, and they were extremely powerful. What do you want? Yi Shukong was not weak at all. The aura belonging to a deity erupted. If it was anywhere else, it would be enough to make the sky fall, and the earth crack, and the stars explode. However, this was the 100-bird Dynasty Phoenix Palace. Even if a Regis Godfiend expert were to go all out, it would be very difficult to shake the 100-bird Dynasty Phoenix Palace. The One-Horn clan's members didn't look good. Although Yi Shukong and Yi Shiwen were of the same clan, and it seemed like there was no relationship between them, but in their eyes, there was no difference. They had been too embarrassed during this time. Because of Du Tian, their entire clan was looked down upon by many, and they had to vent their anger. At this time, an old deity from the One-Horn clan said in a gloomy voice, "Since you and Yi Shiwen are of the same clan, and he does not dare to come out, then you will wash away the humiliation of our clan." At this time, an old deity from the One-Horn clan said gloomily, "Some time ago, the matter of Yi Shiwen teaching Du Tian a lesson had caused an uproar, and he had also heard about it. Although it had nothing to do with him, the other party had already come to their door, and backing down was not his style at all. At this time, he no longer had the childishness of the past, and he had the domineering aura of a true deity. Good. I think you are really looking for death." The old deity from the One-Horn clan instantly attacked, pouncing towards Yi Shukong. His body erupted with countless rays of divine light, transforming into monstrous talismans that contained the essence of the Great Way. This was the clan's powerful secret technique, and it was not something that ordinary people could block. This secret technique turned into a kind of star in the sky, bursting with dazzling and mysterious light, directly striking down. Yi Shukong's face was expressionless, and he did not move. Suddenly, bursts of golden light erupted from his body, and his whole body seemed to be wearing a divine robe. Boom! The huge star fiercely bombarded the divine robe on the surface of Yi Shukong's body. A violent golden light burst out, setting off stormy waves, and constantly exploded with violent rumbling sounds, shocking people's hearts. Everyone was stunned. Wasn't this Yi Shukong a little too powerful? He was actually able to receive the attack of the old deity of the one-horned race without moving an inch. This kind of unwavering appearance was even more terrifying. What kind of might was this? Suddenly, everyone remembered that among the descendants who could awaken the blood of the deities on their own, they were all known as natural deities, and they had powerful powers that ordinary people could not imagine. How is this possible? The old deity from the One-Horn clan could not believe it at all, and his eyes widened. His attack with all his strength had actually been blocked by the opponent without even blinking. At this time, Yi Shukong was truly like an ancient deity who had come back to life, invincible in the world. At this time, Yi Shukong finally made his move. His whole arm turned into a sharp sword, and his whole body turned into a sword ray, instantly pouncing towards the old deity from the One-Horn clan. Bang! The old deity from the One-Horn clan had no time to react at all, and he was directly hit. His whole body was pierced by the sword, and blood instantly sprayed out, and he knelt on the spot. Poochie! Only then did Yi Shukong pull his arm out from the body of the old deity from the One-Horn clan, bringing with it a boundless amount of blood. Idiot! Yi Shukong said as he looked coldly at the old deity from the One-Horn clan. So powerful. He crippled an expert from the One-Horn clan with one sword strike. Is this going against the natural order? What is the background of this Yi family? They actually produced two peerless figures in a row, and they are simply unimaginably powerful. These two people are indeed from the same clan, and they are indeed lawless. This Yi Shiwen has completely disgraced the One-Horn clan, and it seems that Yi Shukong will not hesitate to give way. Everyone was very surprised. This Yi Shukong was really very powerful, much more powerful than they had imagined. The first time they had heard of Yi Shukong's name was when he was mentioned together with Ling Tian and the image of him as a challenger to Ling Tian. But now, as soon as Yi Shukong made his move, everyone knew that they were wrong. Such a figure, even if he did not mention his name to anyone, was enough to become the focus of everyone's attention. The people from the One-Horn clan were so angry that their mouths were almost crooked. They had originally wanted to take revenge and get back at their pride through Yi Shukong, but in the end, Yi Shukong had easily injured an expert from their clan. It was simply a disgrace. Well, stubborn. At that moment, the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan said coldly. He was the leader of the One-Horn clan this time, and he could not let things go on like this. With each step he took, his aura continued to rise. It was as if he was the only god in the world. In the end, even the world rumbled. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary rumble. It was like the sound of the Tao. When cultivators heard it, they would receive great benefits. Compared to the old god, just now, the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan was not just a little bit more powerful. The aura on his body had even directly climbed past the immortal level and rushed into the undead level. He was a tyrannical expert of the undead level. Yi Shukong frowned slightly, but he was not afraid. He stood in midair, and the golden light on his body burst out as if he had put on a divine robe. The golden light was dazzling, and an extremely powerful aura burst out. He was actually infinitely close to the undead level, and he had already touched the threshold of the undead level, but he was still a little short. However, there was no doubt that he was already standing at the peak of the immortal level, and he had a terrifying aura. Kill! However, this time, Yi Shukong did not wait for his opponent to make the first move. Instead, he made the first move because he was a very difficult opponent to deal with. The golden light on his body connected into a string of talismans, and these talismans instantly turned into a monstrous divine sword, slashing down. You, Junior, you're too arrogant. At that moment, the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan raised his hand, and it turned into a huge hand. It expanded with the wind, growing bigger and bigger, and with a thunderous sound, it directly slammed down. Boom! A loud roar was heard, and the middle-aged man directly broke the sword that Yi Shukong had unleashed with all his might. Everyone was shocked that a casual attack from the middle-aged man had actually broken Yi Shukong's sword. His ability had completely taken the upper hand. That was the power of an undead-level expert, and he had the upper hand when facing Yi Shukong, who was at the peak of the immortal level. Yi Shukong frowned, and it seemed that he did not expect the middle-aged man to be so overbearing. However, his face still looked fearless. Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because you've joined the martial sect. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your elders, and let you know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is. A genius who hasn't grown up is just a baby, the middle-aged man said coldly, but he did not dare to shout and kill like he did to Yi Xuan. He grabbed down with his big hand, and it turned into a star in the sky. It smashed down fiercely, directly attacking Yi Shukong. Yi Shukong let out a long roar, and the aura on his body surged like a stormy sea, slapping the sky. It condensed into a sword formation, and with a clang, it slashed towards the big star hand. Chapter 24:16. Everyone in the area retreated. However, the Pavilion of Phoenixes didn't even react. Just the pressure of a Tao artifact was able to suppress all fluctuations. Their attacks were like the tide and seemed extremely terrifying, but most of them had already dissipated not far away from them. Therefore, even the people from the martial sect did not show up. There was no need to do so at all. Did they really think that the Pavilion of the Phoenix was a fragile palace? It was the place where Emperor Xiao Hao used to work, and it was also an extremely powerful Tao artifact. Rumble! A huge explosion sounded. After Yi Shukong's attack was resisted by one side, it could not withstand it in the end and exploded on the spot. Although Yi Shukong's cultivation was infinitely close to that of an imperishable realm expert, he had not truly crossed this boundary after all. There was still a huge gap between their cultivation. "You're courting death," the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan said coldly. He easily broke through Yi Shukong's attack as if it was nothing at all. His big hand turned into a star and blasted down. The dazzling starlight was eye-catching. Just when he was about to hit Yi Shukong, an astonishing sword chi suddenly burst out from Yi Shukong's body. It swept across the sky and formed a gigantic broken sword behind him. Countless rays of light flashed on the broken sword, like raging flames flowing endlessly. Bang! With a loud bang, the ray of sword light completely destroyed the middle-aged man's attack. The middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan was shocked and quickly withdrew his hand. He was almost injured by the sword chi. He looked at Yi Shukong with surprise and fear in his eyes. The sword chi just now was enough to make him look at Yi Shukong in a new light. However, to everyone's surprise, Yi Shukong did not continue to use the broken sword to attack. Instead, he grabbed another sword chi and attacked the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan. The middle-aged man immediately became furious. Although he was afraid of the broken sword, it was not Yi Shukong's turn to act presumptuously in front of him. The two of them immediately began fighting again. After the horned middle-aged man had suffered a loss once, how could he be willing to suffer a second time? He also could not use his full strength. On the contrary, Yi Shukong did not have any scruples and attacked with his full strength, intending to compete with the horned middle-aged man. Bang! 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 Their battle was about to reach its climax, especially Yi Shukong, whose battle intent was boiling to an unbelievable level. Although Yi Shukong did not seem to be a match for the single-horned middle-aged man, he did not give in at all and did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Just what is the origin of that broken sword? It can actually injure an existence in the imperishable realm, many people exclaimed in a low voice. They were all deities, and their eyesight was not bad. They could easily see that Yi Shukong was able to not be at a disadvantage to a large extent because of that broken sword. Although that broken sword had only been used once, it was enough to give everyone a lesson. Obviously, it was very extraordinary. It was very likely to be an upper-grade divine weapon, or even a supreme-grade divine weapon. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to injure an existence in the imperishable realm with a broken body. Everyone's eyelids twitched. Yi Shukong was really too fierce. Otherwise, he would not be able to force the single-horned middle-aged man to constantly retreat and not dare to fight. The sky was filled with Yi Shukong's golden light, like a round sun. Wherever he went, sunlight would follow. It was very impressive. Although he could not defeat the single-horned middle-aged man with ordinary means, it was already a victory to be able to force an imperishable realm expert to not dare to use his full strength. This was an earth-shattering battle. So strong, Yi Shukong is about to break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly. He is about to undergo a further transformation. Someone exclaimed. What is he doing? With that broken sword, he can definitely gain the upper hand. Why isn't he using it? Could it be that the conditions to use this broken sword are very harsh, or the threshold is extremely high, so he can only use it once? Someone could not help but speculate. This was the only way to answer the doubts in their hearts. Otherwise, why did Yi Shukong not make a move? No, it's not that he can't make a move, but he doesn't want to make a move. Not far away, Yi Shiwen opened the Eye of Redemption and had a panoramic view of the battle between the two of them. Nothing could hide from his eyes. He is using the power of this one-horned clan expert to take the last step, to truly break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly, to become an immortal, and achieve the supreme fruit of the imperishable realm. Yi Shiwen said faintly. After not seeing each other for years, Yi Shukong had become stronger, not just a little bit stronger. Yi Shiwen's progress over the years was not slow, but Yi Shukong's progress was also extremely fast. The benefits of having an extremely powerful teacher guiding him day and night were self-evident. However, he was still a breath away from entering the imperishable realm. Now he was going to use the external force of this one-horned clan expert to force himself into the imperishable realm in one fell swoop. At that time, there would be earth-shattering changes, and everything would be different. This was a very risky way of breaking through. Once it failed, it was very likely that he would die. Because Yi Shiwen had tried it before, he was very clear how difficult this cultivation method was. Both Monk Huizhen and Ao Yin were slightly moved. After hearing Yi Shiwen's words, they could also see that this method seemed very risky, but in fact, the success rate was not high. Only Ling Tian's expression did not change, as if he had not seen anything. However, his eyes were constantly flashing with a kind of brilliance, indicating that his current mood was not so calm. Although the one-horned middle-aged man was very strong, he had been very careful, afraid that the broken sword would attack again, so he could not take down Yi Shukong. He was extremely angry in his heart. At first, he did not take Yi Shukong seriously, only treating him as an ordinary martial grandmaster disciple. Although the martial grandmaster was strong, it was not so strong that any random disciple could make them wary. But he was defeated by Yi Shukong. More importantly, the main character had not appeared yet. Yi Shiwen had not appeared yet, but he was forced to this point by Yi Shukong. This was simply a shame. The people around him were pointing fingers at him, making him more and more impatient. And at this moment, suddenly, only a loud roar was heard. Another expert hidden in the one-horned clan directly attacked. It was a young expert who had been hiding and did not make a move. He thought that the one-horned middle-aged man was enough to solve all the problems. But who would have thought that he would be forced into such a difficult situation? This could not go on. Even being pointed at was much better than being mocked like this. The young man thought of this and immediately attacked from the other side. This was another supreme existence of the indestructible realm. Yi Shukong might be able to deal with an indestructible realm being by relying on the deterrence of the broken sword, but when a second indestructible realm being intervened, the situation was immediately reversed. Oh no, it's too late. Too despicable. They're going to join forces and attack. The one-horned clan can only rely on numbers. Many gods also said one after another. Naturally, they were dissatisfied that the young god of the one-horned clan had attacked and interrupted this very exciting battle. However, at this critical moment, an even sharper sword light suddenly burst out with a whoosh and directly slashed in front of the young god, cutting into his body. Blood burst out like a mountain torrent. The arm that was about to attack Yi Shukong was directly chopped off on the spot. The scene was silent. Everyone was shocked. They had just said that the young god was too despicable, but in the end, in just a short period of time, there was a sudden change. The young god's arm was actually chopped off. Ah! The young expert of the one-horned clan held his arm and screamed in pain. Golden blood flowed down like golden liquid, extremely dazzling. This was an eternal realm expert of the one-horned clan. In the entire one-horned clan, he was also considered a very tyrannical figure, almost the top figure. How terrifying was the attack power of such a sword to cut off an arm? What's going on? Did Yi Shukong's broken sword attack again, just now? Many people said with some uncertainty. It seemed that they did not see the broken sword attack again just now. A powerful god said, "No, I clearly saw the sword chi attack from the opposite direction just now, which means that it should not be Yi Shukong's attack. It should be someone else." He had the best eyesight just now, so he had captured some things. After being reminded by him, many people also remembered that it did not seem to be from Yi Shukong's direction just now. Who on earth did it? You can focus on your breakthrough. Don't worry. At this time, Yi Shukong was also a little puzzled because only he knew that the sword chi was definitely not from him. Even he did not see when the sword chi attacked. He suddenly became a little worried. One had to know that such a person who was unknown friend or foe, just now, if that sword was aimed at him, then he was simply finished. However, when he heard that sentence, he suddenly felt that it was very familiar and then instantly remembered who it was. He was also a little shocked. After not seeing each other for so many years, his skills had become unbelievably profound. Then he muttered, "Have I been seen through?" He took a step forward, and while the other party was still stunned, he rushed forward to attack. In the distance, Yi Shiwen put down his arm. That sword attack just now was made at a critical moment, directly cutting off the young god's arm, preventing Yi Shukong from being attacked from both sides. Chapter 24:17. This is just a small lesson for you. The mountains will never change, and the rivers will always flow. What? You want revenge? With just you? Yi Shiwen said coldly. He had attacked in an instant, and no one present had been able to see through it. Who would have thought that he would receive a warning before he could attack? Yes, he had received a warning. He immediately felt that the other party was warning him. Otherwise, even if the other party were to directly attack his head, he would not be able to do anything. All right, since that's the case, our one-horn tribe admits defeat this time. I didn't expect that you would be the one to make a move in the end. We've overestimated our own capabilities. The mountains will never change, and the rivers will always flow. We'll meet again in the future, the young deity said fiercely. He seemed to have accepted this unreasonable reality. However, he had no intention of interrupting Yi Shukong's battle. This was a rare opportunity for him to use external forces to break through to the eternal realm in one fell swoop. But it was precisely because of this that he was completely enraged. One had to know that he was a dignified eternal realm expert. Even if he did not count the clan behind him, just by himself, how many people would dare to look down on him? The strength of the person who could unleash that kind of sword chi was most likely already to a certain extent. So strong! Everyone was dumbfounded and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. They simply could not imagine it. Just now, they could all see that the one-horned middle-aged man was about to explode and intended to attack with all his strength. But in the end, he was sent flying by the sword chi of the broken sword. He roared wildly in his heart, already thinking of thousands of possibilities. After all, in such a situation, even the seniors of the martial arts sect did not attack. At this time, who else but Yi Shiwen would have a reason to attack at this time? It was just that he did not expect the One-Horn clan to still be brooding over this sword at this time. Could it be that they were not afraid of the revenge of the senior who had unleashed the sword chi? However, everyone was also very curious about who had unleashed that sword just now. It was just that that sword was too amazing, and they did not dare to look for it for fear of angering the senior. But now, since the One-Horn clan had said so, they naturally wanted to see who this person was. There was an intimidating light in his eyes, and 2 balls of fire were burning in them. He was already angered to the extreme. When he attacked just now, he wanted to end this farce in one fell swoop and redeem the already ruined reputation of the One-Horn tribe. His scarlet-yellow gaze swept across the crowd, trying to find the person who had attacked him. Although he didn't dare to act immediately, he definitely had to find out who had injured him. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too ridiculous? However, this was sent by Yi Shiwen. If they continued to fight, they would only lose more face. With the broken sword in their hands, There was no way they could defeat Yi Shukong. However, he quickly adjusted himself and did not take advantage of his victory to pursue. Even if he won, he still needed time to digest the results of this battle. To him, fighting with an imperishable realm expert with all his might was a great harvest. This was not something that ordinary people would have the opportunity to experience. However, he was stopped by the young deity. With great difficulty, the young deity stopped bleeding, then stepped forward and said, "Today, our one-horned tribe admits defeat. However, I wonder which senior knows about that sword just now. Can you show yourself and let us see it?" The crowd was also in an uproar. They were also guessing who had unleashed that sword just now, but they never thought that it would be Yi Shiwen. However, now that they thought about it, it was indeed so. It could only be Yi Shiwen who had unleashed that sword. Originally, the middle-aged man of the one-horned tribe was already afraid of that broken sword of Yi Shukong. Now, he was even more worried about some unexpected disaster. The young deity was incomparable to him, and their strength was similar. However, one of his arms had been crippled by that sword. If it were him, he wouldn't be much better off. If it were anywhere else, that sword would probably have been aimed at the head of the young deity. However, this was the 100 birds facing the Phoenix Pavilion of the martial sect, and there must be a reason why the one-horned tribe did not dare to start a massacre here. How tyrannical was his true strength to be able to severely injure an eternal-level being with just one sword. Moreover, Yi Shukong was even more aggressive. He actually wanted to turn the tables and attack first, which made him even more furious. Immortal level my ass. Have any of you seen an immortal level being able to beat an eternal level being like a dog? If you say that he is an immortal level being, I don't believe it at all. He must have hidden his strength. Roar! He let out a loud roar, and the power of stars erupted from his body. It was as if there were stars circulating around him, and it was unusually dazzling. This was a warning, an extremely warning. However, as soon as his voice fell, he saw another sword chi directly flying over, instantly cutting his body in half. The upper half of his body was cut in half in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone was dumbfounded. There's no need to look. The person you are looking for is me. Yi Shiwen slowly walked out of the crowd. It's actually Yi Shiwen. How strong is Yi Shiwen? Didn't someone say that he is only an immortal level being? They did not expect this to happen. The one-horned middle-aged man roared and wanted to continue fighting. The injury caused by the broken sword was also recovering rapidly. This sword was not as terrifying as the sword chi that Yi Shiwen had slashed out earlier, which made the eternal level masters unable to quickly expel the sword chi and heal their injuries. Everyone suddenly had doubts about Yi Shiwen's strength. It was probably far more than what he had shown. He and Yi Shukong were like opponents and friends. Seeing that Yi Shukong could improve, he was naturally extremely happy. It was almost as if he relied on this kind of flame to beat the other party repeatedly. Yes, I think so too. Immortal level, that's impossible. However, at this time, he did not dare to argue with Yi Shiwen. He hurriedly led the one-horned clan masters away from the garden as if he was fleeing, away from this monster in human skin. Didn't they say that he has only achieved Tao for hundreds of years? How can he have such strength? It's simply terrifying. Half of the one-horned young god's body rolled to the side, and blood was spurting wildly. However, he did not die. Naturally, an eternal level master would not die so easily. The young god clutched his arm, his face pale and cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Although indestructible realm gods had the terrifying ability to regenerate with just one cell, one could imagine what kind of blow it was for an indestructible realm expert to seriously injure them. It was not something that an ordinary person could withstand. What, it's you? The young god's eyes widened. Naturally, it was impossible for him to not see Yi Shiwen's portrait, since he had specially come to look for Yi Shiwen. However, he had never thought that the person who had injured him with a sword earlier was actually his target, Yi Shiwen. After this battle, he clearly felt that the eternal level was really as thin as a cicada's wings. It was as if he could break through at any time. At this critical moment, the broken sword suddenly appeared in Yi Shukong's hand, and he slashed down with lightning speed. Damn it! How dare you make an enemy of our one-horned clan? I will definitely make you die without a burial place. Yi Shiwen's sword was only a warning to the young god, so that he couldn't attack unscrupulously. Speaking of which, Yi Shukong was also suffering in his place. It was impossible for him to watch Yi Shukong being attacked from both sides without doing anything. Beside him, whether it was Monk Huizhen, Ao Yin, or Ling Tian, who had a cold expression just now, they all looked at Yi Shiwen in astonishment. It was as if they had never thought that Yi Shiwen could actually have such strength. It was unimaginable. The crowd was in an uproar as they began to discuss the matter. In their eyes, this sword chi must have been unleashed by an elder of the martial arts grandmaster who could not bear to watch. If that was the case, then everything seemed very normal. Suddenly, everyone finally remembered that the leader of the One-Horn clan was still in closed-door training. It was said that he was trying to break through the life and death barrier to become a divine master. With the protection of such a powerful leader, they were naturally full of confidence. Just a simple sword chi was enough to severely injure an eternal realm cultivator. How shocking was this technique? However, at this moment, he was stunned by this sword and did not dare to attack casually. That sword was too frightening. If it had been just a little off, it would not have been as simple as just having his entire arm cut off. The One-Horn clan's surrender was expected. After all, the battle had already reached this point, and they had lost all face. First, Yi Shiwen had taught Du Tian a lesson. Then, these experts had repeatedly attacked, but they could not take down the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan. There was no way for them to regain their face. It was impossible to find an Eternal Realm expert at any time, anywhere. This was a rare opportunity. Otherwise, he would not have accepted Yi Shiwen's good intentions. Bang! The sword chi that erupted from the broken sword was like a flame, spreading and burning everything. It instantly slashed the one-horned middle-aged man's body, causing cracks to appear on his body and sending him flying. At this moment, the battle between Yi Shukong and the middle-aged man from the One-Horn clan had also entered a white-hot stage. The sword chi that Yi Shukong had grabbed seemed to have turned into a kind of golden flame. It was extremely terrifying. Because everyone was in front, they did not see where this sword chi came from. However, they were right beside Yi Shiwen, so they saw it clearly. However, being forced to this extent by this junior, he felt extremely sullen. Usually, with his status, no one in the clan dared to disobey him. Even outside, no one dared to give him some face. However, today he had been repeatedly humiliated by Yi Shukong. Moreover, he did not want to embarrass Qin Lai. Yi Shukong's aura was somewhat chaotic. Although he did not use the broken sword, not because he could not, but because he did not want to, it was indeed as everyone had expected. This broken sword could not be used all the time. Otherwise, he would have been able to sweep the Eternal Realm with just this broken sword alone. The harvest was great. Chapter 24:18. Yes, at this moment, in their eyes, Yi Shiwen had almost become an invincible existence. He could seriously injure an Eternal Realm master with a single sword strike. Such strength was simply unimaginable to them. At least, there was no one among them who could resist. Instead of continuing, Yi Shiwen might not kill them, but for them, it was a kind of humiliation, so it was better to leave as soon as possible. Yi Shukong walked over, then looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Thank you very much. You're welcome. You were also targeted because of me. Speaking of which, you can be considered to have blocked a disaster for me," Yi Shiwen said with a wave of his hand. "It's nothing. This time I also gained a lot," Yi Shukong said. This was not a lie. This time, if he could break through to the Eternal Realm, Yi Shiwen would be the main contributor. "I haven't seen you for a long time. Your skills have become more profound. I knew you wouldn't die. The Abyss Devil Lord won't kill you so easily," Yi Shukong continued. "Our unfinished battle is now the right time." He looked at Yi Shiwen with boundless fighting spirit in his eyes. Even though he had just fought, it did not diminish in the slightest. Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, "You're not my opponent." Yi Shiwen's words were very realistic. Everyone was in an uproar. Everyone had seen how tyrannical the strength that Yi Shukong had displayed just now was. A peak immortal stage fighting against an eternal realm master. And even with that broken sword, he could definitely injure an eternal realm master. Such a situation could not be said to be weak, but Yi Shiwen actually just shook his head. He did not even fight and said that he was not his opponent. Wasn't he a little too arrogant? However, to their surprise, Yi Shukong did not question Yi Shiwen. Instead, he nodded, obviously agreeing with Yi Shiwen's judgment, because he knew very well that Yi Shiwen had no need to lie to him about this. Yi Shiwen was stronger than him, and it was probably not just a little stronger. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would not dare to say so. That sword was the best proof. So Yi Shukong did not hesitate because he still did not have the ability to fight with Yi Shiwen. Everyone was secretly surprised in their hearts. How strong is Yi Shiwen? Was he really going to surpass imperishable realm experts? "You're that Yi Shukong?" At this moment, Ling Tian interrupted and said. Yi Shukong raised his eyebrows slightly and silently glanced at Ling Tian. He quickly recognized this person's identity. "That's right, it's me. You're that Ling Tian?" Yi Shukong looked at Ling Tian, his aura unyielding. Everyone's gaze instantly focused on the two of them. One was Ling Tian, and the other was Yi Shukong. This was great. The two male leads of one of the most popular events in the recent period of time were going to face each other. Tit for tat, it was like a collision between Mars and Earth. Ling Tian was known to be a battle maniac, and Yi Shukong had also shown his extraordinary strength in the battle just now. Both of them were not to be trifled with. Because of Qin Shuang, the two of them, who were originally strangers, had now become the fiercest competitors. "You want to fight with me over Qin Shuang?" Ling Tian looked at Yi Shukong and said indifferently, "It's not that I want to fight with you, but she doesn't like you in the first place." Yi Shukong said indifferently, "It's meaningless for you to force it. You should know that whether you like her or not doesn't matter at all." At this moment, Ling Tian said, "This is a matter between the fallen angel tribe and the martial sect." Ling Tian's face was indifferent, as if these things had nothing to do with him. For him, there was nothing special to pay attention to other than cultivation and fighting. You don't have to be happy too early. This matter is not a foregone conclusion yet. Yi Shukong was unmoved. He was not discouraged in the slightest. "Ling Tian, go back. I will not marry you." Suddenly, a cold and melodious voice resounded from the sky, and then a beautiful figure appeared before them. It was an extremely beautiful woman. She was wearing a light yellow dress. She was tall and had snow-white skin. Her facial features were exquisite and natural. There was a hint of indifference in her expression. This was Qin Shuang, who had countless supporters in the martial sect. Everyone looked at Ling Tian one after another. They did not know if Ling Tian would fly into a rage after being publicly rejected by Qin Shuang. This was an exceptionally shameful matter. Who could endure it? Many people were guessing that Qin Shuang had only mentioned Ling Tian, but she hadn't mentioned a word about Yi Shukong. Could it be that they had fallen in love with each other? It would be somewhat possible if that was the case. After all, Yi Shukong wouldn't suddenly stand up and challenge Ling Tian without any warning. Yi Shiwen's gaze swept between these two people. He had already understood the situation in his heart. Perhaps these two people had been secretly in love with each other for a long time, but they had made it clear now. However, Ling Tian didn't fly into a rage out of shame like everyone had expected. He merely walked over to these two people in a very cold and detached manner and said, "You don't need to tell me about this matter. It doesn't matter whether you like me or not. It also doesn't matter whether I like you or not. After all, we didn't come together because we like each other, right?" Everyone suddenly understood. This was a political marriage. So, did the wishes of both parties matter that much? In fact, this was nothing more than a formality. "I don't care if you can convince your martial sect's elders to disagree," Ling Tian indifferently said, "but your chances aren't great. My clan wouldn't have come to propose rashly if I didn't have some assurance. Ling Tian's tone contained a kind of indifference. However, it was true. Perhaps there was nothing truly worthy of his attention. However, I'll give you a chance. If you can defeat me, I'll tell them about the cancellation of the marriage. There's no need for you to do anything. But, on the contrary, if you can't defeat me, then you'll have to go somewhere else. Ling Tian indifferently said. Yi Shukong also looked at Ling Tian in astonishment. He hadn't expected that Ling Tian would propose such a condition. It was completely different from what he had imagined. Ling Tian wasn't hysterical, nor was he completely hostile. There was only a kind of indifference. It was a kind of indifference that disregarded everything. This matter and Yi Shukong himself weren't important to Ling Tian at all. Seeing that Yi Shukong was about to attack, Ling Tian opened his mouth and said, "You're not my opponent right now. It's useless even if you attack. I'll give you some time to break into the eternal realm. After 3 months, we'll have a battle." "All right, after 3 months, I'll come and challenge you," Yi Shukong said. Even with the help of his master, it wouldn't be easy for him to reverse the situation. So, he had to try everything he could. "Ling Tian, even if you win, I won't marry you." Qin Shuang bit her lower lip and said, "What does that have to do with me?" Ling Tian completely ignored Qin Shuang's thoughts. This made Qin Shuang furious. "Since I've already said everything, I won't stay any longer. Sister, let's go," Ling Tian said. He directly pulled Ling Fei and disappeared from the garden. Ling Fei didn't even have time to react before she was taken away by Ling Tian. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect that things would turn out like this. After 3 months, the two of them would have a battle. Could it be that Ling Tian had already broken into the eternal realm? This matter caused countless people to discuss. After Ling Tian and Ling Fei left, Yi Shukong and Qin Shuang became the focus of everyone's attention. "Congratulations." Yi Shiwen's face showed a hint of playfulness as he cupped his hands and said. Yi Shukong's originally tense face also showed a rare expression of embarrassment. For him, this was also the first time a young lady had gone to the bridgehead. "You're Yi Shiwen, right? I've always heard Shukong mentioning you. He said that you're a strong opponent. Now it seems that it's true." Qin Shuang said generously without the slightest embarrassment. "I came here not only because of Ling Tian's matter, but also to look for you. The battle between you and Senior Immortal Yuan Miao has been decided after our high-level discussion. It will be held in the 100 Birds paying homage to Phoenix Palace 1 month later," Qin Shuang said. The 100 Birds paying homage to Phoenix Palace was chosen because the strength of both of them was extraordinary. If it was in the heaven realm, the sky would fall and the earth would crack. The sun, moon, and stars would be destroyed. However, it didn't matter in the 100 Birds paying homage to Phoenix Palace. No matter how big the battle between the two of them was, it was impossible to damage the 100 Birds paying homage to Phoenix Palace in the slightest. Everyone's ears immediately pricked up. Ever since they came to the conclusion that he was Yi Shiwen, everyone was waiting for when the battle between him and Senior Immortal Yuan Miao would begin. Now that there was finally a confirmed time, many people secretly made up their minds not to let go of this opportunity. They must not miss this battle. "I know, I'll come on time 1 month later," Yi Shiwen nodded and said. He breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Finally, the moment to decide the outcome of the battle had arrived. "Everyone, I'm sorry, I'm late." At this time, the host of this gathering, Qin Lai, finally arrived late. Everyone looked at him. Qin Lai had a smile on his face, as if he didn't know what had happened just now. Qin Lai greeted everyone one by one, and then walked in front of Yi Shiwen and others. "Your real body isn't here?" Yi Shiwen suddenly asked this question. He could tell at a glance that Qin Lai didn't come with his real body. However, he didn't say this out loud. Instead, he directly used the voice transmission technique. "Haha, I really can't hide anything from you. Yes, my real body isn't here at all." Qin Lai shook his head and said, "Now my real body is at a critical juncture of closed-door training. It's not in the heaven realm. I'll tell you about this matter after the gathering is over." "All right." Yi Shiwen was also a little puzzled. He didn't know what Qin Lai wanted to say. Chapter 24:19. The clash between the two sides at the gathering quickly spread through the mouths of the gods. At the same time, a name rose like a comet, and that was Yi Shukong. Yi Shukong, who originally appeared as Ling Tian's challenger, suddenly became even more prominent. In many people's eyes, he was infinitely close to the eternal stage and was almost invincible in the world. Even Ling Tian was willing to give him this opportunity to challenge Yi Shukong. 3 months later, there would be an earth-shattering battle. Whether Yi Shukong could break through or not, the mysterious broken sword alone would have unimaginable power for ordinary people. In the eyes of many veteran powerhouses, Yi Shiwen was even more terrifying than Yi Shukong. Even with Yi Shukong's strength, he only received a "you're no match for me" comment in front of Yi Shiwen. With Yi Shukong's pride, it was a miracle that he could swallow his anger and agree with this statement. It also proved that Yi Shiwen's strength had reached an incredible level. Although he seemed to be at the peak of a mortal level on the surface, no one would believe that he was only at the peak of a mortal level. No one knew how much strength he had hidden. This gathering had made Yi Shiwen, Yi Shukong, and Ling Tian's reputation soar to the skies. Many people were looking forward to the battle in 1 month and 3 months' time. Perhaps it would really be an earth-shattering battle. As the news spread throughout Marshall City at an astonishing speed, the few people involved, under Qin Lai's invitation, entered a private room in the 100 Birds facing the Phoenix Pavilion. In addition to Yi Shiwen and Qin Lai, Yi Shukong, Monk Huizhen, Ao Yin, and Qin Shuang were all present. It could be said that the most eye-catching group of young Dao confirmers were all here. As the host, Qin Lai sat in the main seat. Although it was only a clone, no one would underestimate him. It's rare for us to have the opportunity to meet again today. Come, let me toast first, Qin Lai said as he raised his glass. After drinking a glass of holy wine, he then continued, Yi Shukong, I've heard of your name a long time ago, but this is the first time we've met. I didn't expect you to take away our Qin family's goddess on our first meeting. Tell me, what crime do you deserve? Qin Lai chuckled and looked at Yi Shukong with a mocking expression. Yi Shukong's face was also a little red. If it was his own matter, even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, it would be difficult for his expression to change. However, when it involved Qin Shuang, he could not remain calm. Qin Lai, are you bullying our Yi family? At this time, Yi Shiwen came out to smooth things over. It won't be so easy to bully the people of our Yi family. Who dares to bully your Yi family? Actually, I want to see where your Yi family buried your ancestors' graves. Is it buried in the dragon vein? How did you two come out? TSK. Qin Lai said with a sigh. This was not a derogatory term, but a genuine sigh. It was impossible for an ordinary family to produce any outstanding talents without a solid foundation. Even if they were lucky enough to have a fortuitous encounter and become a peerless hero, it was already very difficult. However, the Yi clan had produced 2 in a row. From their point of view, this was already very difficult. The common saying was that the ancestors' graves were emitting green smoke. Enough, you two, Qin Shuang said reproachfully. How could she not see that these 2 people were teaming up to tease them? Ha ha! Everyone in the room laughed loudly. Qin Lai, when you said that you wanted to hold this party, Tyrant and I thought that your corpse had come back to life. Weren't you always in the ancestral land? Why did you suddenly come out? Ao Yin said. What do you mean by coming back to life? Do you have to make it sound so bad? Didn't I keep asking you whether you want to go to the ancestral land with me? Qin Lai said. You said that you have something to tell me. Is it about this matter? Yi Shiwen asked. Yes. Qin Lai nodded and said, I think you don't know much about the ancestral land of my clan. After all, although the Hidden Valley is big, it is not a sect of my human clan. Yi Shiwen shook his head, indicating that he knew nothing. Not to mention Yi Shiwen, even Yi Shukong did not know what the so-called ancestral land was. This is it. The ancestral land is the core of our human clan. It stabilizes the destiny of our human clan. There are many ancient clans living in it. It is far more than what you can see in the heaven realm. Qin Lai said, Whether it is the demon clan or the demon clan, all the clans in the world have such an ancestral land. It is the foundation of a clan and also the last means for a clan to maintain its inheritance. At the same time, it is also the birthplace of our human clan. However, most people do not know about the existence of the ancestral land. Only the most core talents of the human clan have the chance to come into contact with the ancestral land. Needless to say, Yi Shiwen, he has become a disciple of our martial sect. It should not take long for him to have the opportunity to come into contact with the ancestral land. The only troublesome person is you, Yi Shiwen. Not all human gods can come into contact with the existence of the ancestral land because it is a top secret. Once the secret is leaked, it will cause great trouble. Originally, you were not qualified to enter, but Senior Beggar God personally vouched for you. Yi Shiwen was slightly moved. Although he still did not know what the situation in the ancestral land was like, it must be something important. Now that the Beggar God was willing to vouch for a person who had nothing to do with him, he felt a warm current flowing through his heart. Qin Lai glanced at him and said, "The others already know the situation in the ancestors' land." Hui Zhen is also a member of the human tribe. Although Ao Yin is a member of the dragon tribe, he is actually a protector of the martial arts sect. He has a close relationship with the martial arts sect and has long been inseparable. He can also be regarded as one of us. Many seniors of the Fire Dragon Palace are also cultivating in the ancestors' land. Yi Shiwen nodded. He had also heard that these three sects had a very deep relationship with each other. Even the disciples of the Qin family had joined the Western Heaven. Now, they were even the Buddhas of the Western Heaven. More than half of their disciples were the descendants of many big shots of the martial sect. In the Fire Dragon Palace, there were also many seniors who married female disciples of the martial sect. There were also countless female disciples of the Fire Dragon Palace who had married female disciples of the martial sect or had joined the martial sect. Apart from the different sects, they could almost be seen as the existence of a trinity. The ancestral land of the human clan is the place where the first ancestor of the human clan came from. It is also the last foundation of the human clan. To this day, many ancient clans and powerful existences still exist in it. Most importantly, it is said that the secret of the sovereign emperor of the human clan is buried in it. According to the records, the ancestor of our martial sect, Emperor Qin, had obtained the secret of the sovereign emperor and finally ascended to heaven. Qin Lai's words immediately made Yi Shiwen and Yi Shukong's eyes lit up. For ordinary people, cultivating to the Tao was already the greatest hope of their life. However, for the two of them, having already proven the Tao, becoming an emperor was the greatest hope. Countless gods had been mediocre for their whole lives and had never been able to achieve the Tao. In the end, they had died in meditation and died. Now that they heard that the secret of the sovereign emperor of the human clan was in the ancestral land, the two of them suddenly became even more excited. Especially you, Yi Shiwen. I heard that you were going to participate in the marriage contest in the ancient Phoenix realm. I also heard about it. However, with your current strength, although you are not weak, there is no way you can defeat Ao Chaozong. Qin Lai said very straightforwardly. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly, and his expression was tense. He was very clear that Qin Lai was not talking nonsense. From the news he had heard about Ao Chaozong, it was said that he was a divine master who was infinitely close to the sage realm. It's impossible for you to advance any further in a short period of time. With your situation, it's already extremely fast for you to step into the imperishable realm in a few hundred years. But do you still have a few hundred years to wait? Qin Lai said with confidence. Is there a way to do it in the ancestral land? Yi Shiwen asked. He had been troubled by this matter recently. He was now infinitely close to the imperishable realm, and was even closer than Yi Shukong was. However, if he were to break through normally, it would be difficult for him to take another step forward and truly enter the imperishable realm even after a long time. Even if he were to enter the imperishable realm, he would only be able to close the gap between him and Ao Chaozong, but it did not mean that he would be able to fight Ao Chaozong. As time passed day by day, he began to feel anxious. Normal methods will not work, But there is a way now. There is a divine tree in the ancestral land that Swirenshi of the human clan used to drill wood to make fire. Every 10,000 years, it will bear a heaven fire fruit. Back then, Swirenshi of the human clan was enlightened under the tree and comprehended supreme martial arts. Qinlai said, "Not only does the heaven fire fruit contain powerful energy that can cleanse the meridians and marrow of the divine shell, but more importantly, it contains information about the supreme great Tao that can help one achieve enlightenment." It is said that Swirenshi obtained all the heaven fire fruit and achieved enlightenment. He became the first human to achieve the supreme great Tao in one fell swoop. Your foundation is solid, so it is difficult for you to break through. The heaven fire fruit may be able to help you reach the eternal realm in a single step. Yi Shukong, the same is true for you. If you want to fight Ling Tian in 3 months, you must use this method. Yi Shiwen was quite tempted. If there was a way to improve further in a short period of time, then this was the only possibility. No matter what the probability of him breaking through was, this was indeed a way. Yi Shukong was also very excited. Although today's battle had brought him closer to the eternal realm, to break through to the eternal realm in just 3 months was undoubtedly a huge problem. He had no other choice. Qinlai, you are telling us all this information. I'm afraid it is not as simple as informing us. Yi Shiwen said. Chapter 24:20. You mean there are others who are also coveting the Sui fire essence? Yi Shiwen immediately guessed his thoughts. Yi Shiwen was secretly shocked. This Sui Mu must be an extraordinary existence. Swirenshi was a powerful existence in the ancient times. According to the ancient legends, he was the first human sovereign in the barbarian era before the emergence of the human sovereign. He was the supreme existence who led the human race out of the barbarian era and out of the ancestral land. His strength was unprecedented. Even now, countless powerhouses still had to look up to him. However, that era was just too long ago. It was so long ago that even the legendary 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors hadn't been born yet. Deities were known as immortals. However, many of them had unexpectedly fallen due to various reasons. No one knew if there were any deities who survived from that era. Those legendary powerhouses were just legends among legends now. However, Sui Mu had actually survived from that era. Even if it was a pig, after living for so long, it would be enough to become a world-shaking existence, let alone a divine tree. Right now, it was an existence that was completely unimaginable. That's right. The Sui fire essence has always been rare. It's hidden in the Sui wood. There's no way to get it. Only when the heavenly fire fruit ripens once every 10,000 years can it come out from the Sui wood. Only then will we have the chance to get the Sui fire essence. Qinlai said, in history, there was a senior in our Qin clan who had obtained the Sui fire essence. He then cultivated a supreme magical power and became invincible in the world. I have learned this magical power, but I need the Sui fire essence to succeed. Yi Shiwen, Yi Shukong, and the others were moved. What kind of power a person cultivated was a secret that could save his life at a critical moment. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, ordinary people would never reveal their power. Qinlai's words showed that he had great trust in them. How could they not be moved? However, there are many ancient clans living in the ancestral land. There should be a lot of powerhouses there. If there are divine lords or even more powerful masters intervening, I'm afraid we won't be of any help even if we go. Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, he was thinking more. As the ancestral land of a clan, it shouldered the heavy responsibility of the final inheritance. How could there be no powerhouses in it? You don't have to worry about that. The seniors of our martial sect have made an agreement with the powerful existences of the ancient clans that there will be no more powerful people participating in the competition. It will be a direct competition between the strong and upright people of both sides. It is also a kind of training, Qinlai said, and the real trouble is the peerless geniuses of the ancient clans. They might not leave the ancestral land for the rest of their lives, but they are still as powerful as the others. Among them, there are quite a few troublesome opponents. I hope that everyone can help me fend off these people while I am collecting the fire essence. Qin Lai said, "No problem in any case. We will help you," Yi Shiwen immediately said. Yi Shukong only nodded and agreed. The rest of them also agreed to it. That's great. I believe that our lineup is definitely the strongest. If my golden body is successful in the future, if there's anything you need, just let me know. Qin Lai said, "Don't worry, I won't be polite when it's time to order you around." Aoyan laughed and said, "There's wine and meat. Everything is negotiable." Monk Huizhen laughed and said, both of them grew up with Qin Lai, so their relationship was needless to say. Qin Shuang was the pride of the Qin clan. Although the two of them were in a competitive position and were both the most powerful geniuses of the Qin clan, the relationship between the two of them was not as bad as the outside world thought. On the contrary, they were quite close. And Yi Shukong and Yi Shiwen wanted to fight with all their strength. "When are we leaving?" Yi Shiwen asked. He was already a little impatient. "Don't worry, my body is still in closed-door training in the ancestral land." Yi Shiwen, "You still have a battle with Senior Immortal Yuan Miao. We will leave after that, don't worry." Qin Lai said. After the matter was settled, everyone's mood was much more relaxed. After a few rounds of toasting, the banquet quickly ended. Everyone walked out of the private room and out of the Phoenix Pavilion of 100 Birds. Suddenly, in the sky, a fiery red figure came over with fiery light. Everyone focused and saw that it was a tall tiger about 5 to 6 meters tall. Its entire body was fiery red, as if it was burning with flames. This fierce tiger flew in front of everyone and then turned into the appearance of a middle-aged man in full view of everyone. He was tall and had a somewhat ferocious look on his face. This was another incomparably powerful demon god, a foreign race powerhouse. But in this martial capital, he did not have the slightest scruples and was very presumptuous. Yi Shiwen immediately felt that this demon god had directly locked his divine thoughts on him. It was very unfriendly, and he immediately realized that it was probably coming for him. "Get lost," Yi Shiwen said coldly. He was not polite and instantly broke the demon god's divine thoughts. Many divine thoughts in the surroundings also swept over. Many people had noticed the situation here and looked over one after another. They saw that Yi Shiwen faced a powerhouse of the eternal realm and only replied with a single word. How domineering was this? Although the matter of the gathering in the garden had spread and many people already knew about Yi Shiwen, when they really saw that he dared to face a powerhouse of the eternal realm and tell him to get lost, everyone was still surprised. And that demon god was furious. No matter what, he was a powerhouse of the eternal realm, and the person opposite him was only in the eternal realm. Although they were both gods, the difference between the eternal realm and the eternal realm was simply like heaven and earth. A powerhouse of the eternal realm was enough to suppress a group of eternal realm gods. This was the difference. The fierce tiger demon god narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Shiwen with murderous intent and said coldly, "Junior, you are too arrogant. You appeared in front of me first and dared to lock your divine sense on me. This is a provocation to a deity. Tell me, are you being too ostentatious?" Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He didn't seem to care at all. Many gods came to a realization. Gods naturally had the bearing and dignity of gods. Locking one's divine thoughts on the other party was a very serious provocation. You really have a sharp tongue, but it is useless. The fierce tiger demon god could not help but sneer. "Hiss, I remember now. Isn't that venerable Hu Lin? How did he appear here? Didn't they say that he was fighting in the god Burial Star Ocean? How did he suddenly appear here? If it is him, then there is nothing strange about it. You know, he's a very famous pursuer of Venerable Yuan Miao. He has been pursuing Venerable Yuan Miao for tens of thousands of years. He only gave up when Venerable Yuan Miao got married. I didn't expect him to appear again now." Everyone came to a realization and knew the origin of this Venerable Hu Lin. In the past, Venerable Yuan Miao was also a famous beauty in many worlds. She had many pursuers. Her limelight was not inferior to the current Qin Shuang heir. However, she was later chased away, got married, and had children. Hence, her limelight gradually weakened. Qin Shuang heir and the others caught up later, but it did not mean that she had no pursuers. Yishuan only understood why this venerable Hu Lin looked for him after hearing everyone's words. It was really related to Venerable Yuan Miao. So, you are here for Venerable Yuan Miao. I think you should be very clear about the whole story. Are you sure you want to get involved in this mess? Yi Shiwen said coldly. The whole story has nothing to do with me. However, if you want to find trouble with Venerable Yuan Miao, then you have to go through me first. I want to see who you are. How dare you be so arrogant? Venerable Hu Lin said coldly. The whole story was meaningless to him. Someone is going to be unlucky. Huh? Ao Yin looked like he was watching a good show. He had no intention of stepping forward to help. That's right. This unlucky fellow must have just arrived in the heaven realm. If he had heard a little more news, he wouldn't have come so anxiously to court death. Monk Huizhen's mouth also said with a venomous tongue. Yi Shukong simply held Qin Shuang heir's slender waist and stood next to her. He also looked like he was watching a good show. Yi Shuwen did not make a move in front of him. However, just that sword was enough to let him know that Yi Shiwen was definitely not a pushover. If Yi Shiwen wanted to bully him, it would depend on whether his teeth were good or not. Ah, good. What a good reversal of black and white. Now, it is me who want to find trouble with him. Since you want to die, then I will fulfill your wish. Yi Shiwen said coldly with his eyes squinted. What an arrogant kid, Venerable Hu Lin roared. The tiger's roar shook all directions and turned into a terrifying sound wave that spread out. Then, his big hand directly fell toward Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's face was a little annoyed. He directly made a move. He also slapped his palm directly and collided with the big hand that was grabbing down. Bang! With a loud bang, everyone only saw the two palms collide, and then blood splattered everywhere. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and bone fragments flew everywhere. The huge hand that the Venerable of Tiger Forest grabbed down instantly exploded on the spot, turning into a bloody mist that filled the sky. Ah! Venerable Hu Lin screamed. His entire palm turned into a blood mist and was directly blasted away. Chapter 24-21. Everyone was shocked. A powerful undead stage expert charged over, but in the end, one of his palms was shattered by Yi Shiwen's palm. What an astonishing technique. Hiss. I've only heard that he cut off the arm of an undead stage expert with a single sword strike. I thought it was just a rumor, but now that I've seen it for myself, I feel a chill run down my spine. So strong. Where is his true strength? Everyone was boiling with excitement. Under such strength, they all felt shocked. This is the 100 birds looking at the Phoenix Pavilion. I don't want to start a massacre. I'll give you one more chance. If you don't want to die, then scram. Yi Shiwen was extremely restrained, not only because this was the martial sect's territory, but also because he respected the Qin Emperor. Roar! The powerful demon Immortal immediately transformed into his original form. His body was as huge as a small mountain. His forearm was broken, but with the help of his divine power, it was slowly recovering. His eyes were bursting with a frightening, murderous aura. When the demon god returned to his true body, it meant that he was going to fight with his life on the line. In his true body state, he was much more tyrannical than in his human form. Roar! Another loud roar resounded. Countless terrifying roars instantly transformed into a matrix in the sky and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to suppress him. A powerful force exploded out. Everyone was shocked. This was the authentic tiger roar divine ability. When the god of the eternal habitat heard the figure, he felt dizzy, making him feel as if his head was about to split open. Stubborn, it seems like you really should die. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and a boundless multicolored light burst out from his body. It was dazzling and glaring, as if a powerful impact had burst out. This boundless multicolored light directly shattered the suppressive array. Venerable Hu Lin spat out a mouthful of blood. Golden blood filled the sky, reflecting a dazzling light under the sunlight. With his divine ability broken, he was immediately injured by Yi Shiwen. He took a few steps back, distancing himself from the range of the multicolored light. Countless people were stunned. Just by relying on his aura, he had forced back an imperishable realm expert and heavily injured him. Venerable Hu Lin felt his chest tighten, and he felt dizzy. His eyes widened in disbelief. He hadn't even made a move, and he was already injured by his opponent's aura. How could this person be so strong? When he received the news, he only knew that this person had just proven his Tao. Although it was news from 20 years ago, to a god's cultivation level, there was no difference between 20 years ago and 2 days ago. Even if he had improved and broken through to intermediate stage immortal level. So what? He did not even care about advanced stage immortal level. The difference between the immortal level and the indestructible level was too great. Who would have thought that it would be completely different from what he had expected? His entire body was as cold as ice. At this moment, he had calmed down a little and seemed to have understood something, but it was too late. After that, Yi Shiwen took a step forward and disappeared in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already on the body of the undead realm demon god. Bang! He raised his hand and punched down. There was a loud roar, and the tiger demon deity screamed and tumbled in the sky. Yi Shiwen's fist was so monstrous that it could cut down the sun, the moon, and the stars. Although the tiger demon deity's body was very strong, it was useless at this time. Roar! Terrifying roars kept coming. The tiger demon god kept struggling, trying to throw Yi Shiwen down. However, Yi Shiwen seemed to be glued to it, and it could not be shaken off at all. Wind attribute rules constantly erupted from its body, forming countless blades that rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Every pore on its body was surging with a terrifying energy. However, this kind of power was useless in front of Yi Shiwen. It was completely suppressed. All the attacks that hit its body could only be heard clanking sounds. Then, all these wind blades turned into nothingness. Bang! Yi Shiwen raised his hand and punched down again. The tiger demon god screamed in pain. It felt that its vision had turned black, and it was almost beaten to death. There were cracks on its skull, and it looked extremely terrifying. Bang! 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 Everyone could only hear the continuous sounds of collisions in the sky. That terrifying power spread out, making people feel terrified. At this moment, Yi Shiwen was like a legendary tiger fighting hero. He was riding on the tiger demon god's neck and constantly hitting its head. Every time, blood splattered everywhere. If it wasn't for the fact that he was an eternal realm expert and could easily regenerate his physical body, he would have been beaten to death by now. What a ferocious figure, someone said while looking at this scene. Dumbfounded. Incredible, incredible. Even an undead realm expert is being beaten like a dead dog. I'm afraid Senior Immortal Yuan Miao won't be able to get away with being the enemy of such a figure. In the end, the tiger demon deity was already screaming in agony. He could only keep begging for mercy. He just wanted to show off in front of Senior Immortal Yuan Miao and win the beauty's heart. He didn't really want to fight Yi Shiwen to the death. If this continued, he felt that he would be beaten to death. Yi Shiwen snorted coldly and then directly placed a restriction on the tiger demon god's body. At that time, as long as he thought about it, the tiger demon god's life and death would be under his control. Although the tiger demon god was very unwilling, there was no other way. Its life and death were in Yi Shiwen's hands. If Yi Shiwen really wanted to deal with it, it would be easy and not difficult at all. In the end, Yi Shiwen did not kill the tiger demon god. Instead, he subdued it into an auspicious beast to protect the mountain. For him, although he did not kill it, the purpose of establishing his prestige had been achieved. He believed that within a month, there would be no more blind guys looking for trouble with him. Even if he really wanted to help Senior Immortal Yuan Miao, he had to consider whether he had the ability to do so. A powerful undead realm beast demon god was defeated by Yi Shiwen. He did not get the limelight, and on the contrary, he became someone else's prisoner. and Yi Shiwen's goal had indeed been achieved. All the gods who had seen how Yi Shiwen had brutally subdued a powerful demon god felt a chill run down their spines. Even the powerful undead realm experts who had originally looked down on Yi Shiwen and were eager to try had suddenly calmed down at this time. Venerable Tiger Forest was not weak. On the contrary, he was very tyrannical, but now he ended up like this. It was not that he was too weak, but Yi Shiwen was too abnormal. This news spread quickly, and many people's awe of Yi Shiwen increased by a level. Subduing a beast demon god as an auspicious beast to protect the mountain was not an ordinary act. With this lesson, Yi Shiwen really had a lot of peace. No one dared to trouble Yi Shiwen anymore. Yi Shiwen lived in the Phoenix Pavilion of 100 Birds. Qin Lai helped him get a room at the internal price. He was also happy to cultivate here. He could also feel the Emperor's Tao at a close distance. That kind of unfathomable, obscure, and difficult Heaven's Tao law was manifested in front of him. Even if he could only study a small part of it, it made his cultivation feel like it had gone further. Cultivating here was really twice the result with half the effort. However, he did not retreat, but just a kind of quiet cultivation, a simple kind of cultivation, adjusting his mentality and preparing for the final battle. 3 days later, the arrival of a person interrupted Yi Shiwen's quiet cultivation. This person was none other than Gao Qingye. Previously, Yi Shiwen left Gao Qingye behind. He re-established the pilgrimage palace and accepted disciples again. In 20 years, it had developed to a preliminary scale. In a short period of time, it was difficult for the cultivation to develop by leaps and bounds. However, the framework of the pilgrimage palace had been set up, and all kinds of personnel were ready. The only thing left was to wait for the disciples to slowly grow up and slowly develop into a powerful immortal inheritance. Because of Qin Lai's secret care, although there was an old grudge with Venerable Yun Miao, he did not suffer any difficulties. Even Qin Lai had sent some cultivation materials over the years, which were very precious even for demigods. Therefore, in just a short period of 20 years, the pilgrimage palace had more than 1,000 disciples. In addition to the first-generation disciples, there were already many second-generation disciples. These days, Gao Qingye finally got the news that his master had returned to the heaven realm and was going to fight with Venerable Yuan Miao. How could he not know that it must be because of his matter? He quickly put down everything and came to visit. Disciple Gao Qingye greets master. Gao Qingye bowed and said, Disciple is unfilial. I have trouble, master. Get up. Yi Shiwen made a gesture, and Gao Qingye was lifted up by a force. It's nothing. Since I am your master, I naturally have to consider more for you. Besides, the battle between me and Senior Immortal Yuan Miao is not entirely for your sake. You don't have to worry about it. Yi Shiwen glanced at Gao Qingye. Gao Qingye had become younger these years. At this time, he looked like a young man of 28 or 29 years old. However, he shook his head and said, These years, most of your energy has been on the development of the sect. Although your cultivation has improved, you still have a long way to go if you want to prove your Tao. Yi Shiwen saw through Gao Qingye at a glance. Although Gao Qingye was already at demigod peak, his progress was not too fast compared to when he left. When he left, he had already passed down all the cultivation methods, and he had also left behind a lot of wealth and divine materials. He himself had a rather high aptitude, but in the past 20 years, his cultivation progress had been very slow. There was only one possibility, and that was that the matters of the sect had slowed his pace of cultivation. Master, you are right. Gao Qingye felt a little guilty. Although Yi Shiwen did not have the immortal inheritance, the various conditions prepared for him were not bad, but he still could not prove his Tao. He felt a little guilty to Yi Shiwen. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.